Do you ever get that feeling where something's just off? Like the sky could be blue, birds chirping, everything looking normal, but deep down, you know it's all about to go sideways? That was this morning for me. I was sitting by the window in my room, brushing out my hair, staring at the same pine trees I'd grown up seeing my whole life. From up here in the tower, I could see all of Silverhowl's fortress. The stone walls, the watchtowers, the guards making their rounds. Safe, still, but too still. Like a breath held too long. I caught my reflection in the glass. Long chestnut hair, freckles across my nose that I never quite outgrew, and eyes just like my mom's. Stormy gray and always looking like I'm thinking 5 steps ahead. I wasn't trying to be vain or anything, but when you're the alpha's only daughter, people expect you to look a certain way, act a certain way. But I've never been great at following the script. A soft knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. Only one person knocks like that. "Come in, Dad." The door creaked open, and there he was, Samuel Silverhowl, alpha of the pack, with silver hair that used to be jet black and a tired look behind those sharp eyes. His shoulders used to be broad and firm, like old oak, but now they hung a little lower, like the years had been weighing on him more than usual.
"Morning, Prissy,"
he said, and only he could get away with calling me that. "Morning," I replied, setting the brush down. "You look like you didn't sleep a wink." He chuckled, but it was hollow.
"Didn't. Too much on my mind. I've been thinking, this pack are people, they need more than what I can give 'em now."
I felt that lump rise up in my throat, but I didn't let it take over. Not in front of him. "You're still the alpha," I said. "No one questions that."
"I question it,"
he muttered, and that hit harder than I expected. He crossed the room, sitting on the edge of my bed like he used to when I was a kid having nightmares.
"Priscilla, you're strong, brave. But this world, it's changing. We're surrounded by packs hungry for more land, more power, and I don't got a son to take my place."
"You've got me," I said, a little too sharp.
"I do.
He nodded slowly, eyes softening.
But no one's gonna follow a she-wolf unless there's a strong alpha by her side."
I stood pacing now, arms crossed tight over my chest. "So what? You gonna marry me off like livestock?"
"Not like that,"
he said quickly.
I need to know you'll be protected. That this pack will be protected."
Before I could shoot back, something cracked loud outside, like thunder, but sharper. Then another, then screams. We locked eyes. I ran to the window, smoke, shadows moving fast. Arrows flying. "We're under attack," I shouted, grabbing my boots and blade. Samuel was already rushing to the door, barking orders to the guards out in the hall. My boots hit the stone floor fast as I flew down the tower stairs, dressing mid-run like I'd done 100 times in training. My armor wasn't fancy, just leather across the chest and arms, enough to move fast without getting torn up, but it was mine, and I wore it like skin. Out in the yard, chaos. Wolves shifting mid-air, steel clanging, warriors falling. The gate was breached. "Who are they?" I shouted to one of the guards as I ducked under a blade.
"No sigil, no colors. They're not here to talk."
Well, no surprise there. I shifted mid-sprint, my bones cracking, fur coming out like wildfire under my skin. My wolf wasn't dainty or delicate. She was pure muscle, dark gray with a scar under her right eye from when I was 16 and bit off more than I could chew. We fought like hell, side by side with my warriors. I was fast, mean, and smart. Always 2 steps ahead, cutting through their lines like I'd trained for this moment my whole life. But there were too many of them. I leapt back behind the inner wall, shifting into human form, breathing hard, blood dripping down my arm where one of them grazed me. Samuel joined me, blood on his blade, but still standing tall. "We're outnumbered," I said, glancing around. "Way out,"
"I already sent word,"
he said.
2 alphas owe me, 1 better pay up."
I didn't ask who, didn't have time. I just nodded once and ran back out. Minutes stretched like hours. We held our ground, but just barely. My sword was getting heavier. my legs slower. And then, horns. I turned to the east wall where the sound was coming from. The enemy looked too. Then, from the tree line, they came. Uniformed soldiers, moving like a wave of fury, organized and ruthless. At their front, a man I didn't recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes like wildfire, and a jaw you could cut glass on. His black coat billowed behind him, and even in the middle of the blood and screams, he looked like he was in control. He didn't waste time. He shouted one order and his men split into formation, slicing through the attackers like they'd rehearsed it. This wasn't a rescue. This was a damn takeover. I was mid-swing when I felt someone at my side, fast and lethal.
You must be Priscilla,
the man said without looking at me.
I'm Adrian.
I didn't answer. I just fought beside him. We moved in sync like we'd trained together for years, back to back covering each other. He took down 3 attackers in seconds, not breaking a sweat.
You fight good for a princess,
he said with a smirk. And you talk a lot for a guy in a war zone, I shot back. He laughed, ducking under a blade and slamming his opponent to the ground with one clean move. By sunset, the yard was quiet. Bodies everywhere, ours and theirs. Blood in the cracks of the stone. But we'd won. Somehow, we'd held it. Adrian stood a few feet away, wiping blood from his hands with a cloth, breathing steady like he'd just finished a jog. I walked over, still trying to figure out who the hell this guy was. Thanks, I said finally, for coming. I mean it. He tilted his head, eyes locking onto mine.
You didn't need me. You were already winning. You just needed the scales tipped.
I looked at him close now. There was a calmness about him, but behind it, something wild, dangerous, like a wolf who knows exactly what he's capable of, but don't need to show it off. Why'd you show up? I asked.
Your father called. Said the Silverhowl pack needed help. I owed him. Besides,
he smiled slow.
I've heard a lot about you, Princess.
Oh yeah? I crossed my arms. Like what? He took a step closer.
That you're fierce. That you're not like the other highborns. That you've got bite.
I didn't flinch. You here to flirt or fight?
Why not both?
He shrugged. I snorted. Well, thanks for the backup, but we got it from here.
I'm sure you do,
he said, not moving an inch.
But I didn't come all this way just to play hero for a day. We've got a lot to talk about.
He walked away then, just like that, like he knew the conversation wasn't over. And he was right. Samuel walked up next, limping a little but still holding strong.
That's Adrian, Alpha of the Blackmore Pack. The other Alpha bailed.
He's intense, I muttered.
He's effective, and if we're going to survive what's coming, we need someone like him.
I looked out at the sunset, the sky painted red and gold like a warning. Something told me this was just the beginning. The sun was still bleeding red when I leaned on the fortress wall, watching Adrian disappear into one of the side towers like he owned the place. The yard below us was quiet now, just cleanup crews moving bodies and soldiers guarding what was left of the front gate. You'd think after a battle like that, there'd be time to breathe. But in a pack like mine, even peace feels like a setup.
Come inside, Priscilla.
Dad's voice called from the hall behind me. I didn't turn around. I will, just needed a second.
You've had a lot of seconds. You'll have more later. We've got guests.
I pulled my gaze off the horizon and followed him back into the great hall. Samuel had the cooks working double time. The long tables were loaded. Roast boar, sweet potatoes, fresh bread, stew with herbs I couldn't even name. Adrian's soldiers filled the benches, shoulder to shoulder, laughing and drinking like they'd been part of this pack for years. And Adrian? He was sitting at the head table next to Samuel like he belonged there. Not a scratch on him. He looked cleaned up already, coat gone, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his black shirt open just enough to make a statement. Like he wasn't trying too hard, but still knew damn well that people were looking. Including me, unfortunately. He saw me walk in, and his mouth curved slow, like he'd been waiting on it. I didn't smile back. I took my seat across from him and focused on my stew. One of the new recruits, a sharp-eyed girl named Mira, looked over and asked,
Priscilla, why don't we just shift and stay shifted when we fight? Wouldn't that be easier?
I smiled a little. She wasn't the first to ask that. Nah, it's not that simple, I said, folding my arms. Fighting in wolf form's powerful, sure. It's fast, it's wild, it's raw instinct. But we don't always get to pick our enemies. She frowned.
What do you mean?
Sometimes it ain't just wolves coming for us, I explained. We've had enemies show up with swords, even tech that messes with our shifting. Some are werewolves, some are humans, and some are in between. Hunters, hybrids, rogues, you name it. Mira's eyes widened a little, and I could see the gears turning in her head. So we fight how the fight demands, I went on. Some moments you shift and go full beast. Other times you stay on 2 feet and swing a blade. And in the heat of it, you might shift mid-battle, then shift back just to grab a weapon or dodge better. It's messy, it's brutal, but it works. I pointed to a sword resting nearby on the rack. That's why we train both ways. Our strength ain't just in our claws, it's in knowing when to use them. She nodded slowly, and then she smiled and started her meal. The feast lasted longer than I wanted. Adrian made small talk with Dad, charming the pants off half the council. I sat quiet, only speaking when I had to, watching everyone, watching him. Every so often, I'd catch Adrian watching me. Not in a creepy way, just deliberate. He didn't hide it. After the meal, Adrian stood to stretch and motioned toward the main hall doors.
Alpha Adrian, may I speak with you in private?
Adrian looked surprised but pleased.
Of course. Come with me.
I stayed seated, poking at what was left of my plate, trying to pretend like I wasn't dying to know what that little sidebar was about. It didn't take long. They came back 10, maybe 12 minutes later. Samuel's face looked satisfied. Adrian's, confident, too confident. And right then, I knew. I knew something was off. I got up from the table before my nerves chewed me apart. Headed for my room, taking the back stairwell. Not in the mood for more fake smiles or small talk. Wasn't even halfway undressed when a knock hit my door. That knock, slow, measured. I pulled my robe around me tighter. Come in. Samuel walked in like he owned the place, which technically he did. His face was calm, too calm. That face he put on when he was about to drop something big and didn't want to scare me. Is this about Adrian? I asked before he could open his mouth. He paused by the fireplace, ran a hand over his beard.
It is.
You're not going to say what I think you're going to say, right? He exhaled, almost smiled.
You're smart, so I know you already know.
I stared at him. You asked him to marry me.
He accepted.
He said gently, like that would make it better. My mouth went dry. I turned away from him, walking to the window again because if I didn't move, I was going to explode. I pressed my palms against the cool stone frame, taking a breath that didn't help at all. You didn't even ask me first.
It was a strategy move, Prissy. He's a strong alpha. His men follow him without question. He stepped up when no one else would. He kept us from losing everything.
I fought too. I didn't run.
I know.
He said quickly.
You were incredible, but you also know how this world works. Packs follow strength, not sentiment. You, with him, that's unshakable.
I turned back around, crossing my arms. So what? I'm a pawn now? Just some move on a game board?
No, you're the future of this pack, and I'm trying to make sure you get to keep it.
I didn't answer. I sat down on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. The fire crackled in the hearth, but it didn't warm me at all. I didn't even say I like him, I muttered.
You will,
He said.
Give it time. He's not a bad man.
I didn't respond. I just sat there, feeling all the weight of it settle in my chest. After a long moment, Samuel sighed and walked over. He placed a hand on my shoulder, rough and worn, but steady.
Think about it. I'm not rushing you, but we need to move soon, before the others see weakness.
He left without another word. I sat there for a long while after that, long enough that the fire burned low and the shadows crawled up the walls, The next morning, I didn't sleep in. My body was tired, but my head was wide awake. I washed, dressed, and tied my hair back into a braid that meant business. I didn't go to breakfast. I didn't want to see anyone yet. Instead, I went down to the east courtyard where the training grounds were, where I could think without someone breathing down my neck. That's where Adrian found me. I was throwing knives into the target board, one after another, dead center. He stood back, watching for a few throws before speaking up.
You're good with those.
I didn't stop. I know,
You mad at me?
Adrian asked. I yanked a blade out of the board and turned. No, I'm mad at my father. You just happened to be part of the package. He tilted his head.
Would it matter if I said I didn't come here looking for a wife?
I crossed my arms. But you said yes.
I did, and I'd say it again.
I studied him. Why? He shrugged, but it wasn't casual.
Because I respect strength. And from what I saw yesterday, you've got more of it than half the alphas I've ever met. You're not a damsel. You're not trying to be anyone's prize. That makes you worth standing beside.
Beside, I repeated, not in front of. He smiled a little.
I don't like being underestimated. I figure you don't either, so no, not in front.
That answer did something to me. Not enough to change everything, but enough to make me listen. He stepped closer, not touching me, just looking me dead in the eye.
I'm not here to trap you, but I'm not walking away either. This alliance could protect both our packs. And you and me? We could make a hell of a team.
Even if I don't love you, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His expression didn't change.
Love comes in time. Respect's the start. You've already got mine.
He turned and walked off, leaving me in that damn courtyard with my thoughts. By sunset, I'd made up my mind. I found Samuel in the council room, going over reports with two of his betas. Can I talk to you? I asked. He looked up and dismissed the others with a wave. I'll do it, I said. I'll marry him. He stood slowly, trying to read my face.
Are you sure?
No, but I'm sure the pack needs this, and I'm not going to let Silver Howl fall apart just because I'm feeling unsure. He looked proud. Too proud. I hated that part a little.
You're doing the right thing, Prissy.
Don't call me that right now. He chuckled, soft.
All right, but I'm still proud of you.
I left before I could change my mind. That night, I stood on the balcony of my room, staring up at the moon. So many thoughts running through me, none of them settling right. I didn't know what the future looked like. I didn't know what kind of man Adrian really was, or what this marriage would turn into. But I did know one thing. I wasn't doing this to be saved. I was doing this to lead. And I'd make damn sure Adrian knew that before he slipped any ring on my finger. I didn't sleep that night. Barely even sat still. My braid was a mess by morning. Pieces of hair fallen out around my face like I'd wrestled with my pillow all night. Which, honestly, I kinda did. I was still standing on the balcony when the knock came. 2 short raps. Only one person knocked like that. Come in, Ruby. The door creaked open, and there she was, all wild curls and attitude, wrapped in her fur shawl like it was armor. She always did that dramatic pause thing when she stepped into a room, like she was entering a stage instead of a bedroom. She looked me up and down.
You look like hell.
Good morning to you too, I muttered, turning away from the window. She walked over, tossing her shawl on the bench.
I came as soon as I heard. Marriage? To Adrian?
I raised a brow. You got something stuck in your throat, or... She put her hands on her hips.
Don't joke. You can't be serious about this. You know what people say about his bloodline.
I crossed my arms, already feeling the heat rise in my chest. People say a lot of crap, Ruby. She stepped closer, her voice dropping low.
I'm not talking about rumors. I'm talking about history. His grandfather, Duras, he dropped dead not even a month after getting married. Some say it was a bad luck. Others think his own mate had something to do with it.
That was decades ago, I shot back. And you're basing your opinion of Adrian on a story from another lifetime? She didn't blink.
It's not just a story. It's a pattern. Look it up. Tragedy follows that family like a shadow.
I let out a long breath and sat on the edge of my bed. You know I don't get to say no to this,
Since when do you do anything just 'cause you're told?
she snapped.
You're Priscilla freaking Silverhowl. You don't fold.
I didn't answer, mostly 'cause I didn't know what to say. Ruby sat down next to me.
You thinking it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it is the right thing.
I looked at her. The pack needs stability. Adrian offers that. If I don't do this, who will? She reached over and squeezed my hand.
Just promise me you'll be careful.
I always am, I lied. Later that day, I found Samuel in his study. He was hunched over some maps, drawing new border lines and notations, probably figuring out where Adrian's pack overlapped with ours. You think this is really gonna work? I asked, leaning against the doorway. He looked up, blinked like he didn't expect to see me.
You mean the alliance?
He asked. I stepped in. I mean the marriage. Samuel leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples.
You're having second thoughts.
I'm having thoughts, I said. Second, third, maybe fourth. I mean, Ruby's talking about bad luck and doomed bloodlines. He raised his brows.
Ruby also thinks the moon talks to her. I know Ruby is your trusted friend, but...
She ain't wrong about everything, I said, sitting across from him. He studied me, his eyes softer now.
Priscilla, I get it. I do. It's a big leap. But look around. Half the packs in the region are struggling. Ours is strong because we make smart moves. This isn't just about survival. It's about legacy.
What if I marry him and everything falls apart anyway?
Then you stand back up and fight like you always do.
There was a pause. He added quieter.
You remind me so much of your mother. She used to ask the same questions.
I swallowed hard, looking away. I just don't want to wake up 10 years from now and regret this.
You won't.
He said.
Because no matter what happens, you'll handle it like you always do. Head high, hands ready.
Later that afternoon, I was trying to escape all of it in the old training yard when Adrian showed up. Again, I swear, that man had a radar for when I didn't want company. He came walking in like he had all the time in the world, dressed down in black again, sleeves rolled just enough to show off his forearms. Arrogant, but not annoying. Not yet.
You always train when you're mad?
He asked. I always train when people keep sneaking up on me.
I didn't sneak,
He said.
I walked in.
I rolled my eyes but didn't stop throwing daggers at the target board.
You don't seem excited about this engagement.
He said finally, standing near the rack of wooden swords.
That obvious, huh?
He walked a little closer.
I'm not expecting you to be in love with me. Not yet.
I didn't answer.
But I'd rather go into this with honesty than pretense.
He continued.
I'm not your father's puppet. I said yes because I meant it.
I tossed another knife, hitting just shy of the bullseye. Ruby thinks your family have bad luck. He let out a sharp laugh.
Duras? Yeah, I've heard the stories. You believe in that stuff?
I don't not believe in it. He took a deep breath, eyes locking on mine.
I've been fighting fate my whole damn life, Priscilla. If there's a bad luck, I beat it when I made it to adulthood. I don't spook easy. I don't bail. And I don't let history write my future.
I let his words sit for a moment. There was no tremble in his voice, no lie hanging off his tone, just certainty. And that somehow calmed me more than any speech my father gave. You really think we could make this work? I asked, keeping my eyes on the target board.
I think you're smarter than you let on and stronger than you know,
He said.
And I think I'd be lucky to have you at my side, not behind me.
That got me. No fluff, no poetry, just truth, and that I could deal with. That night, I sat in front of my mirror, staring at myself like I was trying to find answers in my own reflection. The braid was gone. My hair fell in waves over my shoulders, making me look softer than I felt. Was I scared? Yeah, but I wasn't weak. I reached for the ring that Samuel had left on the vanity earlier. A simple silver band. No frills, no stones. Just solid, unbreakable. I slipped it onto my finger. My hands didn't shake, not even a little. The morning after all those talks of fate and bad luck, I needed air. More than that, I needed a release. Something that didn't involve dresses or marriage or politics. Something real. I tied my hair into a messy braid, slipped into my combat gear, and headed straight for the training grounds. The fortress was finally quiet after days of tension, but inside me, it was anything but. Training always cleared my head. There was something about sweat, speed, and the feel of your own breath catching in rhythm that made everything else fade out. As I stepped onto the field, I noticed a crowd gathering toward the east side of the grounds. And it wasn't just a casual audience either. They were fixated on something, or someone. A tall guy with a strong squared jaw and short-cropped dark hair was running the field like he owned it. His shoulders were wide, arms roped with muscle, and every movement he made screamed confidence. A little too much confidence. He swept one of our warriors onto the ground like it was nothing, then offered him a hand with a cocky grin.
Nice try, man. Keep practicing.
"Who is that guy?" I asked the soldier beside me.
That's Steve.
The guy replied.
He's Beta of Adrian's pack.
Huh, so that was Adrian's right-hand man. And a show-off, apparently. I folded my arms and watched for a moment, lips tight. Steve moved fast, no doubt about it. But there was something in the way he threw his weight around that rubbed me wrong. Another takedown, another smug smile.
Anyone else?
Steve asked, spinning the wooden practice staff in his hand like a baton.
Or have I worn y'all out already?
His eyes scanned the crowd and landed on me.
Well,
He said with a grin, stepping toward me.
you must be the famous Princess Priscilla.
I didn't reply. I just tilted my head a bit, assessing him.
You want to spar?
He asked, gesturing toward the center of the ring. The crowd got quiet. I took a step forward, cracking my knuckles. Sure, I could use a little warm-up. His grin faltered for half a second.
I mean, I was just joking. It's not really fair you being, well, you know.
Oh? I don't know. Do tell me. I arched an eyebrow. He scratched the back of his neck.
You're a woman, and I don't want to embarrass you in front of your people.
A low murmur moved through the group like wind in tall grass. I smiled, slow and cool. What's your name again? I asked, stepping closer.
Steve,
He replied.
Beta of Adrian.
I turned to one of my men. You hear that, Mason? Mason, one of my oldest sparring partners, crossed his arms and smirked.
Yeah, and I also heard him say something real dumb.
He turned to Steve.
Don't let her pretty face fool you, man. She'll hand you your pride in 2 minutes flat.
The crowd chuckled. Steve looked around, clearing his throat,
All right, Princess.
and he said,
Let's see what you got.
We stepped into the circle. I rolled my shoulders, shook out my arms, and raised my stance. Steve came in strong, swinging wide and fast. But I ducked under his blow and landed a light punch to his ribs. Not hard enough to bruise, but enough to get a reaction. He blinked. I waited for the smirk to return, but his expression changed. His jaw tightened. The match went on. He charged. I twisted. He struck. I blocked. His footwork was good, but he relied too much on brute strength. I didn't. I used timing, precision, and instinct. Then I saw my opening, his left side wide open when he pivoted. I spun low, sweeping his legs out from under him. He hit the ground with a loud thud. A beat passed, then another. I planted my boot near his chest and leaned down. Still think I needed protecting. The crowd roared with laughter and cheers. Steve looked up at me, stunned. He took my hand when I offered it, but his grip was tighter than it needed to be. I pulled him up with one quick yank and stepped back. He dusted himself off without a word. I didn't stay for praise or applause. I never fought for that. But as I turned to leave the circle, something made me pause. Across the yard, leaning casually against the wooden rail, was Adrian. He'd been watching. He clapped, slow and deliberate, his eyes warm and proud. It wasn't the kind of applause that came from being impressed. It was deeper than that. Like he'd expected it and was still in awe anyway. I let myself smile, just a little. He gave me a slight bow and I nodded in return, not out of politeness, but acknowledgement. Respect. As I walked past the warriors still buzzing about the match, one of the members called Lena fell in step beside me.
Girl,
She whispered.
you just made a statement.
I didn't say anything right away. My hands were still buzzing from the fight, adrenaline humming through me like a storm waiting to settle. Then I finally exhaled. Yeah, I said. I guess I did. I walked away. In the evening, my father announced that my engagement with Adrian will be tomorrow. I was ready. Not really, but at least I pretended that I was ready. I thought I would not sleep that night, as I had already skipped 2 nights. Sleep came like an urgency. The morning sunlight crept through the tall windows of the fortress, like it was tiptoeing in, almost afraid to interrupt the quiet hum of excitement that buzzed in the air. My chamber had never looked this spotless. Ruby made sure every curtain was fluffed, every flower was fresh. The scent of jasmine filled the room. I stood in front of the mirror, half dressed, half lost in thought, staring at my reflection like it was someone else entirely.
Are you even listening to me?
Ruby's voice snapped me out of my head. I blinked. What?
I said, if you stare any harder, the mirror's gonna crack.
She smirked, fixing my braid, then standing back with a proud look.
You're glowing, Pris.
I gave her a small smile. Feels weird.
Engagements usually do. But hey, at least you're not marrying some creepy old alpha from across the river with 3 ex-wives and bad teeth.
I laughed, a soft, real one. Yet, downstairs, the fortress was alive. Soldiers, pack members, even wolves in human form were bustling around, setting tables, lighting torches, prepping food. People were excited for the alliance, for the future, for the celebration. This was supposed to be the start of something good, maybe even peaceful. Adrian looked sharp. His dark suit clung to him like it was custom-made, and it probably was. He held himself with that confident stillness, like he knew how people looked at him, and liked it. When he saw me walking down the main stairwell, his eyes locked onto mine. And for a second, it was just us in that big, loud place.
You look breathtaking.
He said, stepping up beside me. You clean up nice, too. He leaned in.
Meet me out back after the toast, all right? There's something I want to show you.
What is it? He grinned.
A surprise?
The engagement went by in a blur. Cheers, rings, wine. The ancient vows spoken in the tongue of the elders. Everyone clapped. Ruby squeezed my hand. I caught my father's eyes across the room. He looked proud. Tired, but proud. The toast ended. Everyone was cheering. I felt like the prize everyone dreamed of. The feast was just about to begin. Adrian was absent. Maybe he was preparing for some surprise gift for me. I waited in the great hall, by the head table, scanning the crowd for Adrian. He wasn't back yet. Plates clinked, laughter echoed, and then everything stopped. A man from Adrian's pack stormed in, panting, dirt on his sleeves, panic in his eyes. His voice cracked when he said it.
There's been an accident. Adrian. He's gone.
Gone? What? I asked. I don't know if I said it out loud. It came out of my throat like a breath I didn't mean to take. The whole room stilled. Forks paused midair. Conversations died. Ruby clutched my wrist like she needed something to hold on to. I stood frozen, like my body had suddenly forgotten how to move. The man looked straight at me.
His car flipped. He didn't make it.
My legs felt like they were underwater, slow, heavy. I don't even remember walking. I just remember standing by the main doors, staring at the path outside, expecting him to show up and say it was all a dumb mistake, that he was fine, that the man got it wrong. But he didn't. Samuel stumbled forward, grabbing the edge of the table. He looked like his breath had been ripped straight out of his lungs.
No.
He muttered.
No. Not Adrian.
He collapsed, right there, crashed to the floor like a felled tree. "Someone help him," I shouted. He didn't wake up. They rushed him to his chambers. He was breathing, but barely. The healer said he slipped into a coma. "Shock," she said. "The body can only take so much." And me? I stood outside his door after they carried him in. Ruby was whispering something, comfort probably, but I couldn't hear her. It was like my ears were buzzing with static. I walked away. I went straight to the west wing, where the old window overlooks the valley. That's where I used to sit with my mother. She passed last year. I still remember her humming while brushing my hair, telling me stories about when she met my father. She said love was like the wind. You can feel it even when you can't see it. I couldn't feel anything now. I sat on the stone bench, watching the shadows stretch long across the hills. My engagement dress was wrinkled. My braid was coming undone. None of it mattered. It felt like the whole world had just paused. People started asking questions.
What happens now?
Who will lead the pack?
What about the Alliance?
I heard them whispering outside the hallway, like I was too fragile to hear it to my face, or maybe they were scared of the answer. I wasn't just grieving a fiancé. I was watching everything we'd worked for fall apart. Again. Ruby came in later with a blanket and some warm tea. She didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me.
You don't have to talk,
She said gently.
but if you want to scream, I'll scream with you.
I laughed. Not really a weird, tired, broken laugh. Thanks, Rubes. I'm just trying to breathe.
You think this is some fate? What I said about his family. Pris, I didn't mean it like this.
I looked at her. I know you didn't, but it's not your fault. It's not mine either. She put her arm around my shoulders and rested her head against mine.
I'm not going anywhere. Whatever comes next, we'll deal with it together.
Later that night, I visited my father's bedside. He looked so small, shrunk down in the bed like life had drained out of him. I brushed his hand with mine. "I don't know how to do this, Dad," I whispered. "You were supposed to teach me. You were supposed to lead while I figured it all out. Not this." I sat there for a while, waiting for a twitch, a sigh, anything. But he stayed still. Back in my room, I pulled off the ring Adrian gave me. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I just held it in my palm for a long time, then placed it in the drawer by my bed. Not forever, just for now. The next morning, when the fortress woke up, I was already dressed. Black pants, simple boots, hair tied up. Ruby raised an eyebrow.
Where are you going?
To the war room.
Why?
Because someone's got a lead. She smiled, but it was the kind with tears behind it. Then let's get to it. The war room was colder than usual, and it had nothing to do with the weather. The long stone table, surrounded by chairs that had seated powerful voices for decades, felt like a courtroom instead of a strategy hall today. My boots echoed against the floor as I stepped in, every set of eyes snapping toward me. I held my head high. I had to. Not for pride, for survival. Steve was already seated, arms crossed over his chest like he owned the room. His face unreadable, jaw tight. A few of the elders whispered as I passed. I didn't bother pretending not to hear them.
There she is.
The Alpha Bride.
Or maybe the Alpha's downfall.
She came with a bad luck.
I sat across from Steve and laid my hands on the table. They were steady, thank God. I called this meeting, I started, because things aren't normal. We've lost Adrian. My father's unconscious. Our people are scared and confused, and I refuse to let chaos eat away at us while we sit on our hands and point fingers. There was a beat of silence. Then Counselor Bram, old and crusty with a sharp tongue, leaned in.
Convenient, don't you think? Adrian dies, Samuel collapses, and you, his only daughter, stand alone in power, with both packs.
I stared at him, long and hard. You think I planned this?
I think your hands are too clean for someone surrounded by this much blood.
A woman from the eastern side of the table let out a soft gasp. Others murmured their agreement. "Are you serious right now?" I snapped. "You think I wanted to lose Adrian? You think I asked for my father to be carried out of a hall unconscious?"
"You always had fire, Priscilla,"
said Elder Tanith, her gray eyes glinting.
"Maybe that fire burned too far this time. Or maybe you had came with your bad luck."
"You all forget," I said, standing now, voice cracking from the pressure behind it, "that I fought beside Adrian. I stood between our people and death when half of you sat back and watched."
But power,
Bram began again. "No," I cut him off, slamming my palm on the table. "You don't get to twist this. I'm grieving. We all are. But you think pointing fingers at the only person trying to keep this place together is the answer?" The room fell quiet again. I looked around, locking eyes with those who didn't look away fast enough. "You can hate me," I said. "You can blame me, but don't think for a second I'll back down just because it's convenient for you to make me the villain." Someone at the far end whispered,
"What happens now? Who leads?"
That's when Steve stood up, calm as ever, like he'd been waiting for the moment.
"I'll speak,"
he said, his voice even, strong.
"Priscilla and I will lead, together.
Whispers shot around the room like wildfire.
Not as mates.
He added quickly,
This ain't about love or power, it's about leadership. It's about survival. We need structure, we need direction, we need both fortresses standing together."
I stared at him, not saying a word. My fingers curled against the edge of the table.
"Her bloodline is strong.
Steve continued,
Her father ruled with honor, and she's got guts. I've seen her on the training ground and in battle. She's earned her place."
Now people were agreeing. Some actually started clapping. I should have been grateful. But something about the way Steve said it, like he was tossing me a lifeline I didn't ask for, rubbed me the wrong way. I don't need mercy. I cleared my throat and stood again. "Thanks for the offer," I said. "But I didn't need rescuing." Steve met my eyes, lips twitching just slightly, like he was holding back a smirk.
"I'm not rescuing you,"
he said.
"I'm trying to save what Adrian started, and you happen to be part of that."
That stung more than I thought it would. After the meeting, I stepped out of the war room alone. The corridor felt hollow, like even the walls were keeping secrets. I leaned against a stone pillar, let my head fall back, and stared at the ceiling. My body was screaming to cry, to scream, to break something, but I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, quiet, watching a servant walk by with a tray of untouched food. I hadn't eaten all day, didn't care. Ruby found me there. She didn't say anything at first, just came up and leaned beside me.
"I heard what happened in there,"
she said. "Of course you did," I replied, dragging my hand down my face.
"You good?"
I turned to her, blinking slowly. "Do I look good?" She cracked a small smile.
"Nope. You look like hell."
"Thanks."
"You gonna lead with Steve?"
"That's what they want."
"What do you want?"
I paused. That question echoed louder in my mind than it did in the air between us. "I don't know," I whispered. I don't want to lose everything. Not again." Ruby placed a hand on my shoulder.
"You're strong, Pris. You're one of the strongest people I know. But strong doesn't mean going it alone."
"I'm not sure I trust Steve."
"You don't have to trust him, just outplay him."
That made me laugh. A dry, cracked laugh that felt more like an exhale of pain. Back in my room, I found the corner chair my father used to sit in when we had late-night talks. I sat there now, wrapping his old cloak around me. It still smelled like him, leather, ash, and a hint of something sweet he always tried to deny was cinnamon. I missed him. I missed Mom, too. The three of us used to dance after dinners, even when no music played. Just laughter and footsteps and the warmth of home. Now it was just echoes. Just me. I sat with my thoughts, sketching plans in my mind. Routes for trade, guard shifts, supply chain adjustments. Anything to stay focused. Anything but grief. In the evening, Steve came to see me. I was outside, overlooking the western ridge, arms crossed, cloak dancing in the wind.
Good evening.
He said. I glanced sideways. Didn't rest.
Me neither.
For a while, we just stood there in silence. Why'd you do that? I asked, eyes locked on him. My voice didn't shake. I didn't let it. Steve leaned against the wall, all casual and unreadable.
Do what?
Speak for me. You knew I could have handled them. He tilted his head, jaw tight.
Could you? Because it looked like they were about ready to tear you apart.
I'm not scared of them, I snapped. They're just loud. Doesn't mean they're right.
No one said they were right.
He muttered.
But that room was turning into a powder keg, and you looked like you were 5 seconds away from lighting the match.
I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth to keep from saying something I'd regret. And maybe he was right.
I meant what I said in the war room.
Steve muttered, like he was trying to cool me down. But I didn't need sympathy, at least not from Steve. I know, I replied.
I didn't do it to make you feel like charity,
he said. Still felt like it. He sighed.
You're not an easy person, you know that?
I'm not trying to be.
You're trying to survive.
Exactly. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he pointed out at the horizon.
You see that line?
He asked.
Right where the trees meet the sky?
Yeah.
That's where the real trouble's gonna come from. Not the council, not gossip. Out there. That's what we need to prepare for.
I turned toward him, finally meeting his gaze fully. You in this for the people? I asked. Or for power? Steve shrugged.
Maybe both. But I won't let either fortress fall.
I nodded once, a silent agreement, not trust, but understanding. We were in this together now, whether I liked it or not. And as much as it tore me up inside, I had to keep walking. Because if I stopped now, if I let all this break me, I'd be proving them right. And I've never been one to go down easy. The day passed, and I did my best to handle all things. After 2 days, Steve called meeting in the war room. When I was called to the room, I asked myself, Steve had called meeting? But it should be me, not Steve. Is he trying to overshadow me? I stepped into the room. Murmurs rippled through the room. Some faces turned toward me with hope, others with suspicion.
Priscilla has shown resilience.
Lisa, a seasoned warrior, spoke up.
She's been handling affairs since Adrian's passing, and she is doing good.
Handling?
Scoffed Victor, a younger member with a perpetual scowl.
Or orchestrating. Let's not forget the convenient timing of Adrian's accident.
My fist clenched at my sides. Are you accusing me of something, Victor? He leaned forward, eyes narrowing.
I'm saying it's suspicious. You gain the most from his death.
Then Luke, another elder member of the pack, said,
I believe that Priscilla is taking her responsibility very well, and if you see deep, it's Priscilla who is suffering, not us. Neither me, neither you, Victor.
Victor said.
So, Luke, have you sold yourself?
That's enough.
Steve interjected, his voice cutting through the tension.
Priscilla has been nothing but dedicated. We need unity, not division. Priscilla need us.
The room fell silent, the weight of Steve's words settling over us. I was wondering, why did Steve said that I need them? I belong here. It's my fortress. Why Steve is behaving like he is doing mercy. The war room emptied out slow. Chairs scraped. Boots echoed. Voices fell into murmurs. I stood there, back straight, hands clenched behind me, pretending like I didn't care. Pretending like Steve's "we'll lead together" speech hadn't landed in my gut like a sack of bricks. He stayed behind after the others left, arms crossed over his chest, watching me like I was some damn glass sculpture that might tip over any second. I didn't give him that satisfaction. I didn't thank him either. Why would I? I wasn't drowning. I was fighting to breathe. Yeah, but I wasn't gonna beg for air. Am I arrogant? I don't know. Next couple of days were a blur. Meetings, decisions, forms, land disputes, wolf patrols. All things Adrian used to handle like he was born for it. Me? I was juggling flaming swords in a windstorm. The soldiers didn't trust me. They obeyed me. The elders believed me. And my own people? They looked at me like I was fragile, like any wrong move might snap me clean in two. I barely ate. I barely slept. I'd stare at the map table for hours, fingers dragging across pack borders, trying to remember how Dad used to organize everything, his strategies, his people. And damn it, I missed him. He was here, but not like before. Every time I sat in his chair, I felt like I was wearing someone else's skin. It didn't matter how straight I sat or how firm my voice was. He wasn't there, and neither was my father. The fortress felt like it was built out of stone and silence. No Adrian, no Samuel. Just whispers, side eyes, and people constantly asking, "What now?" Steve showed up more than I expected. Never smiled, but he was there, always leaning in a doorway or dropping a report in front of me with that unreadable look on his face. He didn't blame me, never said it out loud, but I could feel it. He didn't think I was the reason Adrian was gone, and after everything, that counted for something. One afternoon, I don't even know which day it was, I was in the office, papers scattered everywhere, maps, patrol lists, financials. I stared at it all like it was written in some foreign tongue. Then a thought hit me like a slap. The car. Nobody was talking about the car that hit Adrian. Nobody even cared to ask. I stood up so fast my chair clattered to the floor. "Micah!" I barked. Micah, one of the pack soldiers, stuck his head in.
Yeah?
"Did anyone find the damn car? The one from the accident?" His brow furrowed.
We didn't look. It was ruled.
"Don't say it was an accident without verifying," I warned. "Find the car, search traffic cams, check body shops. I want descriptions. I want details. I want a lead." He hesitated for a breath too long. "Now, Micah."
Yes, Luna.
When he left, Steve slid into the room like he'd been listening the whole time.
You're spiraling,
he said. I shot him a look. "Excuse me?" He came around the desk, placed both palms flat on the table like he was staking a claim.
You're chasing ghosts when you should be running 2 packs.
I can't think about crops and treaties when my fiancé got run down like roadkill. His jaw twitched.
You think I don't care?
No, I think you care about keeping the structure intact, about not rocking the boat. I care about justice.
This isn't about justice. This is about guilt.
I froze. You really think I feel guilty? He leaned in closer.
I think you feel like if you don't find whoever did this, then Adrian's death becomes just another bad story people tell in hushed voices.
The silence that fell between us could have cracked glass. I crossed my arms and stepped back. "So what?" I said, quieter now. "I'm supposed to forget about it? Move on, like everyone else already has?" Steve sighed.
No, but you need to balance it. You got wolves depending on you now, Priscilla. People looking for answers, not excuses. You fall apart, everything falls with you.
I turned away, gripping the edge of the windowsill. Outside, soldiers trained in pairs. I could hear the clang of weapons, the occasional bark of instruction. Life moved on while mine was stuck on repeat. "I don't want to move on without knowing the whole truth," I whispered. Steve didn't speak right away. Then, after a moment,
Then let me help.
I glanced back. "Help?"
I'll take charge of the investigation, quietly. Let me do the digging. You focus on what's in front of you.
I didn't respond, just stared at him, really stared. His jaw was strong, lips pressed tight, like he didn't even trust himself to say more. His shirt was rolled at the sleeves, veins visible in his arms, his whole body coiled but calm, like a man who carried storms inside, but never let them show. "You're doing this for Adrian?" I asked. He hesitated.
I'm doing this for the pack.
That wasn't the answer I was looking for, but maybe it was the one I needed. Over the next couple days, things didn't get easier, but they got clearer. I divided duties. I appointed 2 new advisors from both packs. I also appointed my friend Ruby as my advisor. I started holding open councils. People still looked at me sideways, but at least they showed up. Some of them started believing me, especially elders like Luke, Lisa, and few more. Steve kept his word. He brought in notes, camera footage, reports from nearby cities. He handed me a photo once, blurry, dark, but the shape of the car in it looked eerily familiar.
It's a black sedan.
He said.
Tinted windows, no plates, but we're getting closer.
I studied the image like it might speak to me. He noticed.
You okay?
No, I said, but I'm managing.
You don't have to do it alone.
I set the photo down. Yeah, well, I'm still learning who I can count on. He didn't flinch, just replied,
That's fair.
Then he walked out without another word. Later that day, I stood by the balcony overlooking the courtyard. The sun hung low, casting long shadows. A wind passed through, tousling my hair. Steve came up behind me again. He didn't say anything, just stood there. After a long pause, I broke the silence. You know, Adrian told me once that you were the first person he ever trusted with his life. Steve looked off toward the distance.
He was the first person who ever trusted me back. You should try me.
Why'd you never fight for Alpha? He shrugged.
Wasn't mine to take.
You ever think it might be now? His gaze flicked toward me.
Are you offering?
I laughed, small and dry. Number. But I'm not stupid. You'd be better than half the guys in that room. He cracked a smirk.
Half's generous.
I smiled back, just a little. First one in days. Don't disappear on me, I said.
I'm not going anywhere.
And I believed him. Steve leaned closer. I hesitated. But then he was few inches from my lips. I suddenly stepped back. I said I should leave. Maybe for the first time since Adrian's death, I finally believed someone had my back. But is Steve worth it? Can I really trust him? Is it right? Was Steve trying to kiss? Yes, maybe, but I was not ready for that. Even if it wasn't the one I planned forever with. The letter sat on my desk like it didn't belong there. Crisp, clean, perfectly folded. Too perfect for a world that was still falling apart. I stared at the seal stamped on it. Blue Ridge Pack, Alpha Julian. I didn't even reach for it right away. I just leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed on it like it might explode if I blinked. A dozen thoughts raced through my head, none of them pretty. I already had enough people circling like vultures. The last thing I needed was another alpha sniffing around under the disguise of kindness. But I opened it anyway. Curiosity always did have a nasty habit of getting the best of me. The letter wasn't long. Just a few neat lines, almost too polite. Luna Priscilla, I understand the weight you carry. I don't offer pity, I offer help. I'll come with no guards, no price, no expectations. Let me help rebuild our packs. No claim, no strings attached. I only ask for a chance. We should rebuild our old friendship. We need to join each other. Julian, Alpha of the Blue Ridge Pack. I read it twice, then a third time. My hand trembled slightly, but I didn't let it show. Not even to myself. Steve, I called out, not bothering to look up as I heard the door creak open behind me.
I saw the seal,
he said. His tone was already defensive, like he'd been waiting to have this argument.
Tell me you're not entertaining that.
I set the letter down flat. I haven't decided anything. I just read it.
You shouldn't have.
He crossed the room, slow and deliberate, stopping just short of my desk. His eyes flicked to the letter, then back to me.
Julian doesn't do anything unless there's something in it for him. That's how he's always been.
I sighed and pushed myself up. You know what everyone else sees when they look at me, Steve? They don't see a leader. They see a woman who lost her fiancé and took his place like it was some kind of game. They think I planned it, that I wanted this.
You didn't, and I know that.
But they don't. I held his stare. And this man, this alpha, is offering to help. No price, no claim. That's more than I can say for most of the people in our own damn packs. Steve's jaw tightened.
Or maybe he's just clever enough to make his price invisible.
I gave a small, bitter laugh. You think I'm dumb enough to fall for that?
No.
He said quickly.
I think you're exhausted. You haven't slept. You barely eat. You've been handling council meetings, border disputes, food allocations, and trying to play detective all at the same time. That kind of exhaustion makes people reach for easy answers.
I don't want an easy answer, Steve. I want help. Real help. Steve ran a hand through his messy hair, then dropped his arms to his sides.
Then let me help you. You don't need him. I can do more. Just give me a little time.
I walked around the desk until I was standing in front of him. I appreciate everything you've done. You've stood by me when no one else did. You didn't turn your back. You didn't throw accusations. You fought beside me. He looked at me, chest rising and falling, silent. But I need to hear him out. Steve shook his head and stepped back like he couldn't bear to stand that close while I said it.
Then at least don't meet him alone.
I already invited him to the fortress. He'll be here soon.
You already?
Steve let out a dry laugh and looked away.
Of course you did. Why ask my opinion if you've already made up your mind?
I wanted your opinion, I said, quietly this time. But I need to make decisions, whether they're popular or not. He didn't answer, just turned and walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Julian arrived that same day, just a little too early to be casual and a little too calm to be nervous. He came alone, like he promised. Dressed in black, clean cut, with a face that looked like it belonged in some old painting. Sharp jaw, piercing eyes. The kind of face that made people trust you even when they shouldn't. I met him at the steps of the fortress.
Luna Priscilla,
he said, his voice low and smooth.
Thank you for agreeing to meet.
I don't take offers lightly, I replied, studying him, especially ones that sound too good to be true.
I wouldn't expect you to.
We walked in silence through the stone halls until we reached the chamber. I didn't offer him a drink or a seat. I stood by the long table, arms crossed. You said you'd come with no claim, I started. No compensation. Why? Julian clasped his hands behind his back.
Because I've already claimed too much in my life. Things I shouldn't have. And I've lost something because of it. I had made mistakes, but I want a real strong bond between my kingdom and yours.
I raised a brow. That's vague.
I know,
he said.
But the truth is, I made choices I thought were smart at the time. Strategic, alpha-like. People I should have protected, I didn't. And when I finally realized what I'd done, it was too late. I can't take any of it back, but I can try to do something right now.
So this is guilt. He gave a small smile.
Guilt, regret, maybe even loneliness. I've got no heirs, no mate, no counsel whispering in my ear. Just me, my pack, and the weight of everything I didn't do right.
Sounds heavy, he shrugged.
Some days more than others.
I didn't respond, just studied him. His voice didn't shake. His eyes didn't dart around like he was hiding something. But people like him, men who built empires with no family, no friends, they didn't just offer help for free. What do you want in return? I asked.
Nothing,
he said.
Except to know that for once I left something better than I found it.
I tilted my head. You understand I won't give you any real power. You will get a seat at the table in the war room and some authority over my soldiers.
I am okay with that,
he said. And if at any point I feel like this is a setup, I'll cut the deal and you'll walk.
Of course.
I studied him for another long second. He didn't flinch. All right, I said finally. You've got a chance, just one. We don't had good relationship before between our kingdoms, but we need to start a good one. He smiled.
That's all I need.
Later, I found Steve in the training yard, punching the life out of a poor sandbag like it had personally offended him. I said I was going to meet him. I didn't say I was going to marry him, I said, from a few feet away. He paused mid-punch and leaned his forehead against the bag.
You already made your decision. I just gotta live with it.
Steve? He turned to face me, breathing hard, sweat running down the sides of his face.
I'm not jealous,
He said flatly.
This isn't about that. This is about trust. You didn't trust me to help you. You didn't trust me to be enough.
I stepped closer. I do trust you. But you're not the only one who's trying to help me right now. He looked away.
Just don't let him get in your head.
I won't.
And don't forget who was here first when everyone else turned their back.
I haven't forgotten anything. There was a pause between us, the kind that says more than any words could. Then he went back to punching the bag. And I just stood there, wondering if I just made one deal too many. Julian showed up at the fortress like a storm wrapped in charm. Dressed sharp, posture proud, like a man who knew exactly who he was and what he brought to the table. But despite the polite smile on his face, I could practically feel Steve bristling beside me. Julian stepped inside the gates, his boots crunching the gravel.
Priscilla,
He greeted me with a small bow.
thank you for allowing me into your home.
I gave him a polite smile. Welcome, Julian. Steve's arms were crossed tight, jaw set like he'd been chewing on steel. He didn't say a word. Julian's eyes flicked toward him, then back to me.
I hope I'm not intruding.
No, I replied, though I wasn't sure who I was convincing, him or myself. Come on in, I'll show you around. We walked side by side through the main courtyard, the fortress buzzing with quiet activity. Warriors trained off to the side. Some pack elders whispered behind their hands as they caught sight of Julian. A few younger wolves straightened up, curious about the stranger in our midst. Julian leaned in slightly.
You've done a fine job keeping everything standing, especially after all that's happened.
I glanced at him. Trying, I said quietly.
I brought some ideas.
He added, patting the satchel slung across his shoulder.
Some defense strategies, things that helped Blue Ridge keep our borders solid. You might find them useful.
I caught Steve's glare from behind us. His hands were clenched so tight, his knuckles had gone pale. Let's head to my office, I said quickly, hoping to calm whatever storm was brewing in Steve's mind. Julian laid out a few maps on the large table. His fingers traced lines, pointed out spots on our outer walls that could use reinforcement. If you position archers here and rotate patrols every 4 hours instead of 6, you'll have better coverage, less blind spots. Steve finally spoke, voice low but sharp.
You sure you're not just scouting the place?
Julian didn't flinch.
I've got nothing to gain by lying. If I wanted this place, I wouldn't be standing here handing you maps.
Steve stepped closer, chest puffed out.
People like you don't give anything unless they're planning to take something later.
Steve, I warned, shooting him a look. Enough. He turned to me.
You don't know him.
And I don't know what this attitude is either, I shot back. Julian raised a hand.
It's fine. He's just doing what a good beta does, protecting you. I respect that.
Steve scoffed.
You don't know the first thing about respect.
I cut in again. Both of you, that's enough. Julian, show me the rest. Steve, if you're gonna stay, try not to start a fight. Steve muttered something under his breath, but backed off a few steps, arms crossed again. Julian nodded once in thanks, then folded up his papers.
There's more I'd like to see if you're up for it.
We made our way to the medical wing. Julian slowed when he saw Samuel lying motionless in his room. Machines buzzed gently around him. His chest rose and fell in that slow, steady rhythm that tore me up inside.
I heard about your father.
Julian said gently.
I'm sorry.
I swallowed. Yeah. He stepped forward and stood at the edge of Samuel's bed.
I don't know if he can hear me, but I just want him to know I mean no harm. I'm not here for power or land or whatever else people might whisper.
I watched him carefully, looking for cracks in the performance. But he seemed sincere.
Our former alpha made mistakes.
He went on.
Big ones. There's a lot I can't undo, but maybe I can still do something right. Something that matters.
I didn't say anything. My throat was tight and dry, but I didn't stop him either. We walked through the fortress, passing the gardens, the training grounds, and finally the great hall. Julian's eyes lingered on the walls, the people, the pack symbols carved into stone.
You've built something strong here,
And he said.
and I want to help you keep it.
Why, I asked, finally breaking my silence. Why now? He looked at me.
Because if I die tomorrow, I don't want to be remembered for the wrong things. I want to leave something behind that's not stained with regret.
Steve, who had been tailing us like a shadow, couldn't hold back anymore.
You think handing out advice and playing the good guy erases whatever your former alpha did?
Julian turned to face him, calm as ever.
No, but it's a start.
Later, in the main courtyard, Julian handed a lot of small packages wrapped in cloth. Dresses, food, medicine, tools. Nothing extravagant, but thoughtful. People murmured thanks. A few even smiled. People liked it. Steve stood off to the side, arms tight, eyes burning holes through the scene. When Julian offered him one of the packages, Steve didn't even touch it.
I don't want anything from you,
he said. Julian didn't press.
That's fair.
I stepped in, trying to cut the tension. Julian, thank you for the gifts. They'll help. Steve shot me a look like I'd just betrayed him.
I'm asking for loyalty and nothing else.
Julian said gently.
And also the chance to earn trust.
You're trying too hard.
Steve snapped.
And that's exactly why I don't trust you.
Julian paused, then gave a small smile.
Trying is all I've got left.
After Julian left the courtyard, Steve followed me into the hall, fuming.
You can't seriously be buying his act,
he said. I turned on him. I'm not stupid, Steve. I'm cautious. But I'm also desperate. We need help.
There are other ways,
he said. Then where were they? I demanded. Where was everyone when Adrian died? When Dad collapsed? When I was barely holding everything together? He went quiet. I get it. You don't like him. I'm not asking you to. But I need allies. And if Julian's offering peace without asking for power, I'm not throwing it away because you've got a gut feeling. Steve's jaw worked, like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. I'm not replacing Adrian, I whispered. This isn't about that. He looked away.
I never said you were.
But his voice was tight, and I could feel the crack between us growing wider. Later that day, as I sat alone in the war room, Julian's maps laid out in front of me. I took a deep breath and looked at the maps again. Julian may be offering help, but Steve wasn't wrong to be cautious. And I was just trying not to drown while everyone expected me to swim. Julian started showing up at the fortress so often. It was like he'd moved in without ever packing a bag. At first, I thought maybe he was just checking in, being courteous, offering help. But before I knew it, the man was practically everywhere. Training with the warriors, fixing broken fences with the laborers, handing out apples to kids like some sort of fairy tale king with a backpack full of goodwill. And the wild part? People loved it. I'd walk the corridors and hear his name tossed around like he'd always been a part of this place. Julian showed me this trick with my stance, or Julian helped Maura get her door fixed, or Julian's the only one who listens lately. It wasn't just respect anymore. He'd carved out something deeper. He was becoming family. Steve noticed it too. He wasn't exactly subtle about it. Every time Julian was around, Steve was 2 steps behind, smiling too wide, shaking too many hands. He started sparring with the warriors more, helping with decisions that didn't even need his input. It was like watching 2 peacocks in slow motion, except only one of them knew it was a competition. Julian didn't try to win anyone over. He didn't have to. I'll admit, I started looking forward to seeing him. He brought this calm energy with him, like he wasn't trying to prove anything, like he didn't need to. And the way he'd look at me, like he really saw me, not the alpha's daughter, not the girl who lost her fiancé, not the one barely holding 2 packs together, but me. It rattled something inside I hadn't touched in a while. And people started talking, not in hushed whispers either. Loud enough for me to hear, like they wanted me to.
Julian and Priscilla make sense.
He'd be good for her.
They'd be strong together.
One woman even said,
She smiles different when he's around.
I pretended not to hear that one. Steve, of course, wasn't deaf to it. One morning, Julian was outside training. Shirt clinging to him like it had been made for him. Sweat dripping from his brow. Muscles moving like damn poetry. I was watching from the upper balcony, totally pretending to be checking supply ledgers, when Steve walked straight out onto the practice ground, like a storm brewing.
You and me.
Steve called out.
Right here. Let's spar.
Julian looked over his shoulder, wiping his forehead with the back of his arm.
You sure?
Steve smirked.
Unless you're scared.
Scared? Me? I think you must have forgotten that you are talking with an alpha.
Julian said. People clapped for both of them. Julian chuckled under his breath and stretched his shoulders like it was just another casual morning routine.
All right, Beta, let's dance.
I leaned over the rail a little, eyes narrowing. This wasn't just about training. This was Steve trying to reclaim some kind of crown that no one had placed on his head. They started circling each other, feet light, eyes locked. First few moves were clean, measured. But it didn't take long before Julian took the upper hand. His speed, the way he moved, it was like he'd memorized Steve's next 10 moves before he even made them. Every punch Steve threw, Julian dodged it like it was in slow motion. Every counter, every step was pure control. And then, right when he had Steve in a position that was practically checkmate, he hesitated, just for a beat. Long enough for Steve to twist out, sweep Julian's legs, and land him flat on the ground. The crowd clapped. Steve stood over him, chest heaving, arms raised like a damn gladiator.
I guess I'm still the strongest,
Steve said, loud enough for the entire courtyard to hear. Julian pushed himself up with a half smile.
Guess so.
But I saw it. That pause, that flicker in his eyes. He let Steve win. Later, when everyone had dispersed, and Steve was busy soaking up his imaginary crown, I found Julian near the training dummies, toweling off. You threw that match, I said. He glanced at me, smiled, tugging at the corner of his mouth.
You think?
I know, he shrugged.
Didn't seem like it'd help anyone if I beat your Beta in front of the whole pack.
You're playing the long game, I murmured.
I'm not playing any game, Priscilla,
he said, more serious now.
I'm just not trying to take something that doesn't belong to me. This pack's still healing. Letting Steve have that moment? That was for him, not for me.
I stared at him for a second, trying to figure out what the hell kind of man does that. Dominates a fight, then hands the win over like it's a gift. My chest felt tight for reasons I couldn't explain.
Dinner at my place tonight,
Julian added casually, like we'd been talking about weather.
You and Steve, just the three of us. Good food, neutral ground.
You cook? I asked, smirking.
I order the best,
he said with a wink. And just like that, he stepped out with a smile. I called Steve to my chamber. He arrived promptly, his expression a mix of curiosity and caution. When he stepped in, his boots echoing on the hardwood, he looked annoyed already. No hello, just...
What's up?
I wanted to let you know, I said, turning from the window. Julian invited us both for dinner at his fortress. His brows shot up.
Us?
Yeah, I said, arms crossed now. He asked for both of us.
Well, you can go. I'm not interested.
That was expected, but it still landed like a rock in my shoe. Steve.
I'm serious.
He cut in, grabbing a bottle of water like he suddenly had somewhere to be.
Why would I walk into that guy's house just to watch him show off?
I leaned against the edge of the table. Because it's not about showing off. He's trying to be friendly. You said we need allies. Steve scoffed.
Yeah, well, that guy doesn't want to be an ally. He wants to be your everything.
I blinked. That was blunt. Excuse me, you're reading too much into it, I said, brushing off the way my chest felt warmer.
Am I? I am sorry, Luna.
I didn't answer that. Instead, I turned back toward the window and muttered, Fine, I'll go with the driver. He didn't say anything as I walked away. A few hours later, dressed in a navy dress that hugged just enough without trying too hard, I was heading out when Steve called out behind me.
I'll take you.
I stopped. What?
I said I'll take you.
He repeated, walking toward me with a look I couldn't place.
I changed my mind.
My eyes narrowed. You sure about that?
Yeah.
No apology, no explanation. Just that classic Steve stubbornness, wearing a black button-up like he didn't just do a 180 in the past few hours. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy to drag it out. The ride was quiet for a while. A strange kind of silence, not angry, just full. I watched the trees fly by, thinking too much. Then Steve asked,
Do you think that I hate him?
I stared at him for a while, then I replied, I don't know, but you don't trust him for sure. Steve didn't blink.
I only trust you.
I know, and I am glad.
I am, and I will be always there for you, Priscilla, whether you choose me or not.
Steve.
Priscilla, don't say anything. I know your answer.
I don't know why, but I felt bad for Steve. Then a thought came into my mind. Was I really relying on Julian too much? Had I made a mistake by trusting Julian? But then the thought washed over from just as it came. We both didn't spoke until we reached. Steve tapped his fingers on the steering wheel like he wanted to say something, but never did. When we reached Julian's fortress, I swear my jaw literally dropped. It was a freaking palace. No, beyond a palace. It made Samuel's fortress look like a cabin. The walls were tall, shining under the dim light. There were guards everywhere, hundreds of them, positioned like chess pieces. Every one of them turned as we approached. I'm Priscilla, I called out. And this is Steve. The guards didn't ask for proof. They bowed. One of them smiled.
Alpha Julian is expecting you.
Steve shot me a glance.
Expecting us, huh?
Don't start, I muttered, but I was already a little surprised myself. As the gates opened, it felt like stepping into a different world. The floors were marble, and everything inside had this golden shimmer, luxury without being too loud. Even the hallways had art and soft lighting, like some fancy museum meets castle type of deal. Julian came out, wearing a gray suit that probably cost more than my entire closet. He smiled.
I'm glad you made it.
Wow, was all I could manage. Julian chuckled.
Come on in. I've been waiting.
He greeted Steve with just as much warmth as he gave me, like he hadn't noticed the constant tension between them. Inside the dining hall, it got ridiculous. The table looked like something from a royal banquet. Long, polished, covered in dishes I couldn't even pronounce. There were at least 20 different meals lined up, served by a staff of chefs in matching uniforms. Steve leaned toward me.
Did we just walk into a 5-star restaurant or a different planet?
I'm still figuring it out, I whispered back. Julian smiled across the table.
Please sit. You're both guests of honor.
The chairs were ridiculous, velvet, carved with intricate designs. The least impressive chair in this room made my best one back home look like a school desk. Dinner was a blur of laughter, soft conversation, and incredible food. Julian didn't flaunt anything. He didn't name drop or flex. He just hosted, with grace, with ease, like this wasn't all overwhelming. Steve kept quiet, barely speaking. His eyes kept darting around like he was calculating something. I caught him staring at Julian more than once, maybe trying to read him, maybe trying to find flaws. After dinner, Julian stood up and said,
Come with me. I want to show you something.
We followed him through a back door that opened into a sprawling backyard. But calling it a backyard felt wrong. This was a sanctuary. There were flower gardens, walking paths, fountains, sparring rings, and even a small lake off in the distance. It was peaceful. Unreal.
This is where I train.
Julian said, pointing at a wide-open arena.
And where I clear my head when politics get loud.
I breathed in slowly. It's beautiful. He smiled.
Glad you think so.
Steve walked a little behind us, silent again. Julian gave us space. He talked about things with light humor, told a few stories, Even made Steve laugh at one point. Just a little. But I caught it. As the night wound down, Julian walked us all the way back to the gates. That's the kind of host he was, never half-measured. He waved goodbye, his smile lingering longer on me than Steve, but nothing about it felt pushy. Inside the car, Steve was quiet again. I waited, letting the silence do its thing. Then he finally said,
"So, you and Julian?
I looked at him. What about us?
You guys are getting close."
I tilted my head. You're the one who said he wants to be my everything.
That was before I saw how you look at him.
I didn't answer right away. There's nothing official between us, I said finally, if that's what you're asking. His voice dropped low.
There should be.
I turned sharply. What's that supposed to mean?
It means,
he said, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter,
that I've been here, before him, during everything. I've stood by your side. I've fought for you.
I swallowed hard. Steve.
I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying,
he said, eyes never leaving the road.
If there's anyone you should trust, it's me.
That hit me right in the gut. Not because it was bold, but because he wasn't wrong. I looked at him for a long second, studying the way his jaw flexed, how his green eyes stayed locked ahead like he couldn't afford to look at me. He was burning up inside, and he was trying like hell to keep it cool. Steve. I do trust you, I said, softer now. You're one of the few people I trust completely. He didn't respond. He just stared ahead, jaw set. Then he started staring at me, but he pretended that he still hadn't looked at me. Stop staring, I said suddenly, trying to break the tension. His eyes finally shifted toward me, slow and deliberate.
Can't help it.
That was it. That was the moment. No fireworks, no music, just silence and that look. I glanced out the window, cheeks warm, and we drove the rest of the way back like that. Him not speaking, me pretending I didn't want him to. But I caught it, that look. And I knew right then, Steve wasn't just being protective. He was falling, fast. And I wasn't sure what to do about it. The car rolled to a slow stop outside the fortress gates. Steve got out first, his boots hitting the ground with that soft crunch that always made me glance his way. He walked around to my side and held his hand out to me. I looked at it for a second before placing mine in his. Warm, steady, and yeah, I already knew why he was doing it. Not because I needed help stepping out of a car, but because he felt something. That thing he hadn't said out loud yet, but I could feel it. He was drawn to me, jealous, protective, maybe even conflicted, and it had a lot to do with Julian. We walked inside without saying much. The quiet between us wasn't awkward, though. It felt like one of those silences where everything's being said, just without words. At the main corridor, I turned to him. Good night, Steve. He didn't move for a second, just looked at me like he wanted to say something but decided not to.
Night,
he finally replied, voice low and deep. Then he walked off toward his wing. I headed to my room, peeled off my boots, and sank into bed without bothering to change. The evening had been long, and my brain was still trying to make sense of everything. Julian's charm, Steve's jealousy, and the way both men made my life 10 times more complicated. I woke up to the faint sound of voices echoing through the corridor. It wasn't the usual early chatter or patrol reports. This was serious. I threw on a jacket and headed toward the war room. I stopped just outside the slightly cracked door and leaned against the wall. No one had seen me yet. Luke's voice came through first, calm and even.
Priscilla and Julian, they look good together. Strong, balanced. If they become mates, I think they could lead us well.
Victor wasn't having it.
If Priscilla chooses Julian, she can't lead us. That's not how it works. She'd have to leave this fortress, both fortresses, really. She'd belong to Julian's side, not ours.
My hands clenched at my sides, my jaw tightened. Lisa, always the voice of reason, cut in.
That's not true. Samuel's fortress belongs to Priscilla now. We don't have any right to make decisions about it. That's her inheritance, not a shared vote.
Victor was quick to reply.
Maybe. But Adrian had an agreement with Samuel. Adrian was supposed to lead both packs. That was the plan.
Luke again, steady as ever.
Adrian's gone. That agreement died with him. Priscilla leads now. Both fortresses. It doesn't matter who she mates.
Then Tanith's voice chimed in.
Victor's got a point. Priscilla's Luna right now because she's single. If she chooses an outsider, Julian, she can't lead us. Not unless she picks someone from this pack.
Lisa groaned.
So what? Now we're dictating her love life? That's messed up.
Tanith shot back.
It's not about love. It's about loyalty. Steve's the beta. She should choose him or stay single. But if she chooses Julian, we're leaderless.
Luke pushed again.
So, if Priscilla chooses Julian, then who leads?
Victor didn't hesitate.
Steve, or someone else from our pack.
Lisa's voice sharpened.
No, that's not how it works. We need to vote on this. We vote on whether Priscilla can still lead, and we vote on whether Steve should be the next leader if not. And Samuel's fortress, that's hers. End of discussion.
Bram, who'd been quiet till now, added.
Lisa's right. We can't claim a fortress that's never been ours. And if she's no longer our Luna, it doesn't mean we strip her of everything. That's just politics, not loyalty.
Then Lisa asked,
What does Steve think?
Bram replied,
Not sure. But I'll tell you one thing. He's got feelings for her. That's for damn sure.
That was my cue. I took a step back, scuffed my boot loud enough on the marble to echo down the hall, and made my entrance. As soon as I walked in, everyone stood, too quickly. I tilted my head. Did I call a meeting? Bram shook his head.
Not at all, my Luna, just talking.
Yeah, just talking.
Lisa echoed. Tanith crossed her arms.
Can't we talk now?
I turned to her. Of course you can. You can talk anywhere you like. I looked around the room, one by one. Their eyes said enough. Some were worried, some were guilty, and a few were loyal. Steve wasn't there, I noticed that. Whatever this was, it wasn't his doing. That mattered. Without another word, I walked out. I didn't stop until I reached the hallway that led to breakfast, but I didn't make it all the way. One of the guards came rushing toward me, his face tense.
My Luna.
He said,
We've spotted movement near the border.
I straightened up. Which border?
Samuel's fortress.
A cold knot of guilt hit me. I'd been so wrapped up managing Adrian's side of things. I'd nearly forgotten about my father's land. My land. How do we know that? I asked. Do we have our guards there? The guard shook his head.
No, my Luna. But Julian sent his men to protect the grounds.
That surprised me. That's good. But why didn't anyone tell me Julian's guards were there?
We told Steve,
the guard said, almost hesitant. I see, I muttered. He didn't mention it. The guard's brows pulled together. He looked like he wanted to say more but held it back. I leaned in slightly. Who do you think these soldiers are?
Could be from another kingdom,
he said.
Could be they're planning something. Samuel's fortress is vulnerable, my Luna. There aren't many guards left there. Only a few from Samuel's team, and Julian's.
I didn't waste time. Tell the patrol team to prep. We're heading there now.
Yes, my Luna.
He turned to go, but paused.
Just so you know, me and the others, we don't see a difference between your fortress and Samuel's. You're our Luna, no matter what those high-ranking wolves say.
I looked him in the eye. I'm proud of you, of every one of you who thinks like that. He dipped his head slightly and disappeared down the hall. I stood there for a second, heart steady, mind racing. Let them doubt me. Let them whisper behind my back. I had a fortress to protect. And this time, no one was going to catch me off guard. The second I ended my talk with the guard, my fingers were already dialing Julian.
Hello, Priscilla.
he answered, his voice calm but alert. Julian, I said, skipping the pleasantries. Did you send your guards to protect my fortress?
Of course I did.
He said, like it was obvious.
And I told my soldiers to keep you in the loop if anything unusual happens.
Well, I replied, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. They just informed us. Outsider soldiers have been spotted near my borders. Julian didn't miss a beat.
Then we shouldn't waste a second. I'll head straight to the fortress.
I paused. You should have told me you were helping protect it.
What?
He sounded genuinely confused.
You didn't know that?
Apparently not. There was a short silence before I added, I'm on my way now.
I'll get there before you do,
he said, then hung up. I didn't wait around. I turned and made my way to Steve's room, heart racing with frustration and a pit sitting heavy in my chest. Steve, I said, pushing the door open. My old fortress might be in danger. Our guards just said they saw outsider soldiers near the borders. Steve was on his feet before I finished the sentence.
Then what are we waiting for?
He didn't even ask questions. No hesitation. He moved like it was his fortress under threat. He stormed out and I followed him down the corridor. He walked straight into the common room where half the pack was lounging around, chatting, sipping coffee, like nothing could ever go wrong. The second Steve entered, the air changed. I saw the tension crawl across their faces as he raised his voice.
My friends,
Steve said, his voice strong.
We've got trouble, and a reason to celebrate after. Outsiders have been spotted near Samuel's fortress. We move now. Once we're done making sure our home's safe, we'll celebrate like we always do.
Lisa stood up like she'd been waiting for that signal.
We shouldn't waste a single second.
But Bram stayed seated, arms crossed, frown carved deep into his face.
That's not our business.
What?
Luke turned to him, eyebrows raised.
What the hell do you mean? It's not our business. She's our Luna. That fortress belongs to her. We're one pack. You forget that?
Bram didn't flinch.
I'm saying she needs to make things clear first.
Lisa narrowed her eyes.
Clear about what exactly?
Victor stood up, his tone calm but sharp like broken glass.
About who she chooses.
Steve stepped in fast, voice like thunder.
Are you all losing your minds? Who she chooses? That's got nothing to do with any of this.
Victor didn't back down.
It does. If she chooses Julian, she can't lead us. That's the rule. And if that's the case, we're not risking anything for her fortress.
I stared at them, stunned. I can't believe this is happening right now. You're seriously throwing this at me? Now? Steve turned to them, face red, jaw tight.
Nobody's forcing her into anything. We're in this together. We need each other. That's all that matters right now.
Lisa didn't wait.
Let's go.
Victor crossed his arms.
I'm not going, and none of my real friends will either.
Bram stood beside him.
He's right. Go ask for help somewhere else.
I opened my mouth to say something, but before I could even breathe, someone else stood up.
I'm coming,
said Tanith. Every head turned. She looked straight at me and added,
but don't think I like you or anything.
I blinked. That was the last thing I expected from her, but I wasn't about to question it. Thanks, I said, honestly. You could feel the room shift again. More than half of the pack quietly stepped back, pretending they had better things to do. But the rest, Lisa, Luke, Tanith, and a few others, stood firm. Then I heard footsteps rushing down the hall.
Wait up!
A voice came. It was Ruby. She skidded to a stop in front of me, wearing full warrior gear. Hair tied back tight, face determined. I frowned. What is this?
I'm coming,
she said, catching her breath.
I'm sorry I'm late.
You're not a warrior, I said, stepping closer. You're my friend. I appreciate it, but I can't let you come with us. Please, Ruby? Before she could argue back, my phone rang. Julian, I picked up. Hello?
Where are you?
He barked. No greeting, no pause.
Are you doing your makeup or something? This isn't a party, Priscilla. The enemies are already at the gates. You hear me?
He didn't even wait for an answer. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still in my hand, every nerve in my body screaming. I'm going, I said, looking around the room. I'm not asking anyone to come. Steve stepped up beside me.
We're coming.
Lisa joined us, then Tanith, then Luke. A few others fell in line behind. We headed out fast. The halls were quiet as we moved. But outside was different. The outer walls were lined with soldiers, the ones loyal to me, the ones who didn't care who I chose, who just wanted to protect what was ours. I climbed up on the watch post, looked out at the faces waiting for me, tired, tense, ready. We didn't waste time. Within minutes, we were moving. Me, Steve, Lisa, Tanith, Luke, and every loyal soul left standing on the road to Samuel's fortress. The sound of boots against gravel, weapons clinking, nerves hanging between us like storm clouds. I glanced at Steve. His eyes were sharp, face unreadable. Think they're bluffing? I asked.
No.
He said, without looking at me. Elle didn't know yet, but I'd find out. The moment we reached Samuel's fortress, I knew we were late. They were already inside. Enemy warriors had breached the first wall, swarming the grounds like they owned the place. Shouts echoed from every direction. Steel clanged against steel. I couldn't even tell who was who until I spotted the silver-blue armor, Julian's soldiers, holding their ground like true beasts. My eyes darted through the chaos, and there he was, Julian, surrounded. 4 men closing in on him, circling like wolves hungry for flesh. But damn, he wasn't just holding his own. He was dominating, blocking strikes, flipping momentum, landing blows with precision. Every move was sharp, every counter faster than the last. For a second, I stood frozen, watching him move like the battle was a dance he'd choreographed himself.
Move!
Steve barked beside me, snapping me out of it. I charged forward, my blade already up, and my warriors stormed in with me. Our soldiers roared, crashing into the chaos. It was blood and fire and battle cries. I didn't have time to think. I just fought. My blade found targets like it knew what needed to be done. We had to take back what was ours. But something caught my attention in the middle of it all. Steve. He wasn't fighting anymore. He was sneaking through the battlefield, his eyes fixed on Julian. I narrowed my gaze. He was moving like he didn't want to be seen. Not by Julian, not by me. His weapon drawn low, steps silent and calculated. My gut tightened and I followed, cutting through 2 more enemies on the way. Then I saw it. Steve raised his arm, gripping his weapon tight, aiming it right at Julian's back. My chest locked up. No, I whispered, my voice lost in the battle. He threw it, fast, sharp, deadly. I swear, time slowed. The weapon sliced through the air like it knew where it was going, headed straight for Julian's neck. And for a second, I thought Steve had turned on us, on me. But then, it hit someone else. A man dressed in dark red armor, creeping up behind Julian with a jagged blade aimed at his spine. Steve's weapon pierced straight through him, dropping the guy like a sack of stones. Julian spun around, confused, but unharmed. And I stood there, completely breathless. Steve wasn't trying to take Julian out. He saved him. The battle didn't last long after that. Julian's soldiers were no joke, strategic, fast, brutal in the smartest way. And with our crew, Lisa, Luke, Tanith, Steve, and the handful of loyal warriors who came with me, we had the firepower to finish it. When the last of the enemy fell, I looked up at the fortress again. No more fighting, no more screaming, just us. We entered together, my people and his. I didn't know what I expected to find inside, but everything was untouched, safe. The walls stood strong, Samuel's people unharmed. That was the moment I exhaled. I turned to Steve. "Thank you," I said, steady but quiet. "This really means a lot." He glanced at me, wiping sweat off his brow, his hair sticking to his forehead.
It was my job, that's all.
He said.
We're one, like I said, even if you don't choose me.
There it was again, that line. Even if I don't choose you, I repeated in my head. Why did he always say that? Like he needed to remind me he wasn't expecting anything. Like he didn't want me to forget it either. I moved over to Tanith next. Her armor was scratched up, one side of her braid undone, dirt streaked across her cheek. But she still stood tall, arms crossed, face unreadable. I know you don't like me, I said, voice low. But what you did today, that proves you're better than me. You're a good woman, Tanith. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. Just said,
I did it for Samuel. He's a good man.
I gave a small nod. Yeah, he is. After that, I took the time to thank everyone. Lisa, Luke, the brave souls who stood by me when the rest turned their backs. But I skipped one, Julian. He was standing to the side, calm but distant, hands clasped behind his back, face unreadable. I didn't say a word to him. And Steve? Oh, he noticed. I caught it, the way the corner of his mouth curved up just a bit when he saw Julian standing there, quiet and ignored. We washed off the battle grime, water turning red as it hit the floor. Then we sat down to eat, a shared meal with everyone, even Samuel's people. Lisa was cracking jokes. Tanith was silently chewing like she didn't want to be there. And Steve? He stayed close, watching the room like a hawk. Julian barely spoke the entire time, just stared at his plate or occasionally, me. And I felt it, the weight of his eyes. He was waiting for a thank you that never came. Yeah, I knew. I knew exactly what he wanted. I knew he deserved it, but I couldn't do it. After meal, I stood up. My body was tired, but my mind was spinning like 1,000 gears. I think we all need rest, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Let's stay here tonight. We'll head back in the morning. A few murmurs of agreement echoed through the room. Then I turned to one of the staff members. Please arrange a small celebration. Nothing crazy, just something to honor the ones who stood by us. People smiled, spirits lifted. Even the soldiers who'd been inches from death not long ago cracked small grins. Music started. Light filled the room again. For the first time in a while, laughter didn't feel like betrayal. But Julian, he didn't join in. He stayed near the wall, watching me with the kind of look that sticks in the back of your mind long after the lights go out. Like he expected something more. Like he felt something deeper. But I didn't move. I didn't speak. Let him look. The celebration picked up. Folks were talking about the battle, the bravery, the chaos. Julian's name came up. So did Steve's. Lisa got her praise. Even Tanith earned a few cheers. But I kept to myself. Let the world keep spinning. And still, in the corner of my eye, Julian watched. What did he expect? A thank you? Or something more? I didn't give him any of it. Not yet. After dinner, I found myself standing alone on the balcony, the cool night air brushing against my skin as I gazed into the distance. The fortress was quiet, the only sounds being the distant murmurs of the pack settling in for the night. Steve approached, his footsteps soft against the stone floor.
Priscilla,
He began, his voice steady.
I know this might not be the best time, but you need to make a decision soon.
I turned to him, offering a faint smile. What kind of decision? He looked at me, his eyes searching.
You know what I mean.
Choosing between you and Julian as my mate?
Yes.
He replied.
I understand you have feelings for Julian, and that's okay. It's your choice.
I sighed. What if I say I'm content as I am?
You mean you're happy without a mate?
Maybe. He looked away for a moment, then back at me.
I don't know what to say to that.
If I choose you, you'd become Alpha, right? He chuckled softly.
Do you think I'm after the title? What's the real difference between being an alpha and being a beta when there's no alpha around?
You're right, I admitted. Without an alpha, the beta's role is nearly the same. He stepped closer, his gaze intense.
Priscilla, I like you, and you know it. I feel jealous, and it's getting harder to handle.
Steve, it's not that I don't like you, but I don't see you that way.
But you see Julian that way, don't you?
I remained silent.
Good night,
he said, turning and walking away. Left alone, my thoughts drifted to Julian. He had sent his soldiers to protect my fortress without expecting anything in return. He never demanded gratitude or acknowledgement. Steve had always been there for me, but Julian's actions spoke volumes. I wandered through the corridors, eventually finding Julian alone, a glass of wine in his hand. He looked up as I approached. "Are you okay?" I asked.
Yes.
He replied.
Are you?
Yeah. After a pause, I asked, "Do you have a girlfriend?" He smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes.
Girlfriend? Me? What do you think?
He stood up, preparing to leave. "So, you don't have one?" I called after him. He stopped, turning slightly.
Not everyone has the good fortune you do.
Then, with a slight bow, he added,
Good night, Luna.
His words lingered in the air, and I realized he was referring to the privileges I had, my own fortress, Adrian's legacy, and Steve's unwavering support. Julian, despite his feelings, never voiced them, perhaps believing he didn't have the right. I returned to my room, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I knew Julian liked me, and I liked him too. But I hadn't thanked him, trying to pretend I didn't care, planning to distance myself gradually. Yet, deep down, I couldn't ignore my feelings. The next morning, we all prepared to return to Adrian's fortress. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I knew choices had to be made. We stepped inside the fortress. Julian was missing. Maybe he returned to his place, but he hadn't told me. Maybe he was a little angry. I went straight to my room and took a bath. I saw the scars on my body. I washed. Then I dressed and walked out in the hall. I wasn't even 5 steps into the hall when I heard my name. Not shouted, not spoken with respect. Whispered, sharp, judgmental, like the way dried leaves scrape across stone. I slowed my pace, stayed close to the wall, and kept my head tilted just enough to catch their voices.
She can't keep leading if she doesn't choose an alpha.
That was Bram. Of course it was Bram. He was always one of those wolves who wanted the title more than the job. Victor chimed in, quieter but smug.
She's either got to pick one or stay single forever. No more tiptoeing around it.
Yeah?
Bram added.
No more playing both sides. She's been holding on to power without choosing a mate. Like that's even allowed.
My jaw clenched. I didn't move. I didn't breathe.
She's the Luna.
Someone else whispered. A younger voice, maybe Tyler.
She fought for us.
She fought, sure. But leadership isn't just about muscle.
Bram hissed.
It's about structure, stability, an alpha pair, not a one-woman show.
I had heard enough. I stepped into the room like I hadn't just been listening. Their eyes shot to me. No one dared speak. Interesting meeting you all got going on without me. I folded my arms. Let me guess. Talking about which curtains would match the war room walls? Bram straightened up, all puffed up and fake confident.
We were just...
You were just wondering if I'd step down if I didn't pick an alpha, I said. Want to say it to my face next time? The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet, guilt quiet. Before they could answer, a guard peeked in through the double doors.
Luna, Alpha Julian is here. Says he has something urgent to discuss.
Of course he does. Right on cue. Julian walked in like he owned the place, but not in an arrogant way. More like he was confident people would listen, and lately, they did. He wore this storm gray jacket, hair pushed back, calm eyes scanning the room like he already knew half the answers to questions we hadn't even asked. He walked straight toward me and didn't stop until we were a few feet apart.
I came with a plan,
he said, skipping any sort of hello. Oh? Something you cooked up on the ride over? I tilted my head. Should I be worried? He gave me a faint smile, then looked around at the others gathering behind me.
It's a security proposal,
he said.
We're too exposed, Two split up. 3 fortresses, yours, Samuel's, and mine, each fighting their own battles with their own walls, their own patrols. It's not working.
He pulled out a rough map, spread it on the table like he'd been waiting for this moment.
What we need is one united border, a perimeter wall that connects all 3 fortresses, one protective line around everything, like a shared shield.
I leaned over the map. His idea wasn't crazy. It was bold. The kind of thing people would call insane right up until it worked. And who's paying for it? I asked, raising a brow. That kind of wall doesn't build itself, Julian. And I'm not exactly sitting on a mountain of gold bricks. He looked straight at me and said,
I'll build it. I'll fund it. I'll provide the workers, materials, everything.
A few pack members started whispering. Steve, who'd just entered the room, stopped cold and narrowed his eyes.
You're going to build a wall that wraps around 3 fortresses.
Steve said, walking up beside me.
And we're just supposed to clap for you and call it teamwork?
Julian didn't flinch.
It's for security, not power.
Steve laughed, and there was no humor in it.
Yeah, sure. And next you'll be handing out crowns.
Why would I want a crown when I already have a fortress of my own?
Julian asked. Cool as ever, Bram stepped in, glaring at Julian.
You expect us to believe this isn't a takeover? Build a wall and suddenly you've got the right to march into any of our lands anytime you want.
Victor muttered.
He's pulling the rug out from under us, making us dependent.
I looked around. Every face was tense. I stepped up, raised my voice enough to carry. Enough. Silence dropped hard. I'm still the Luna here, I said. And I say we need this wall. You all want protection, but you're too proud to accept help. Julian's not asking for power. He's offering safety. You don't have to like him. Hell, you don't even have to trust him. But this is happening. Steve stepped closer to me, voice low and tense.
Priscilla, don't do this. He's weaving himself into our foundation. Once that wall is up, he'll own part of everything. Think about it.
I have. I looked him in the eye. I think about it every time I see bodies hauled in after another ambush. Didn't we list some soldiers yesterday? Steve said.
But we won.
I asked, but life of soldiers matters too. Steve walked out. Julian gave the order and his men got to work. In just a few days, it started to rise, stone by stone. A massive perimeter wall slowly curving its way from Samuel's fortress, down to Adrian's, and stretching out to Julian's territory. Every time I stepped out onto the balcony, I could see it crawling farther across the land, like veins of purpose stitching us together. Steve watched it too, not with awe, with suspicion. He kept his distance from Julian, but he didn't stop trying to sway the others. At one point, I caught him talking with Bram and Victor near the training field.
He's not doing this out of kindness,
Steve said.
He's claiming territory without firing a single shot, and she's letting him. Priscilla is not our enemy, but she don't understand what she is doing.
Would you rather have a wall or a warning siren? I asked. Stepping in behind them, they turned, startled. If Julian wanted to take over, he wouldn't be building walls, I continued. He'd be breaking them down, think it through. Bram wasn't convinced.
You're getting too close to him.
Victor added,
Feels like you already made your choice.
Choosing safety isn't the same as choosing a mate. And 1 second, who are you to decide? I snapped. Julian, as usual, stayed calm through it all. He handled every question, every accusation, every sideways look with patience that should have worn out by now. One night, we sat in the strategy room, just the two of us. I rubbed my temple, staring at a map dotted with red pins from recent patrols. You're calm through all of this, I muttered, even when they're all ready to throw you under a bus.
I've been hated before,
He said, taking a slow sip of tea.
It doesn't scare me. I care more about the result than the applause.
I looked at him, really looked at him. Not just the warrior or the strategist, but the man. His eyes weren't proud or cocky, just tired, focused. You want them to like you? I asked. He shook his head.
No, I want them to survive.
The wall kept rising, but so did the tension. Every stone laid was a new question. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. This wall wasn't just protecting us. It was dividing us too. I was also researching about Adrian's death. The next few days would show exactly what side everyone stood on. And this time, I'd be ready. Julian had this way of walking into Samuel's room like he belonged there. Like this fortress, my life, my mess of a world, was something he had every right to step into. At first, I thought he was just doing it to impress me. But the more I watched him sit by my father's bedside, talking to him like Samuel could hear every word, the more I realized he wasn't pretending. He cared. And not just for me, for Samuel too.
Hey, Alpha.
Julian said one day, dragging a chair closer to the bed.
Still too stubborn to wake up? You and I are way too alike.
I sat across from him, elbows on my knees, watching the slow, steady rise and fall of my father's chest. The monitors beeped in that dull rhythm, constant and steady, like my thoughts of Adrian, of everything we'd lost. He's trying, I whispered. Julian glanced at me.
So are you, and you're doing damn well.
My eyes met his, and for a second, the fortress didn't feel so cold. We'd gotten comfortable around each other, too comfortable maybe. Julian started visiting often, always checking in on Samuel, always finding excuses to sit with me longer than needed. We talked about the packs, the borders, the weight of duty. But somewhere in the middle of those serious conversations, he'd sneak in a joke, or look at me like he could read all the chaos inside me. I didn't know when it started happening, but I started looking forward to those moments. They felt easy, right? But no matter how close we got, I never let my guard fall completely. There was still the unanswered question that kept me up at night. Who was behind Adrian's accident? Until I found that person, my heart wasn't up for grabs. At least that's what I told myself. One afternoon, while Steve was outside helping the warriors patch up a collapsed section of the wall, Julian leaned against the door frame of Samuel's room and asked,
You ever been to a club before?
I blinked at him. You mean like loud music, flashing lights, drunk people grinding on each other? He chuckled.
Well, when you put it like that, yeah, my friend's throwing a birthday bash. Thought you could use a break from all this.
I stared at him. You want me to sneak away from my fortress to party?
Not sneak.
He smirked.
I'll walk you out in broad daylight.
After some hesitation, and honestly, because I needed to breathe somewhere other than these walls, I agreed. I'd never been to a club before. That night, when we stepped into that place, the bass thumped so hard it felt like the floor had a pulse. Neon lights painted the room in red and blue streaks, and people swayed, shouted, laughed like they had nothing to lose. For once, I didn't feel like Luna Priscilla. I felt like a woman, just a woman. Julian bought me a drink, not too strong, just enough to let my shoulders drop a little. We talked, laughed, danced. The kind of dancing where he held my waist a little too tight, and I didn't mind. Our hands found each other like they'd been searching all along. He pulled me close during one slow song, the world around us disappearing in waves of color and sound. His lips were inches from mine. I could feel his breath, warm and steady. I leaned in. I almost kissed him. But then he pulled away, stepped back like the ground had shifted beneath him. I stood frozen. Why did you? He shook his head quietly.
If you choose me, you lose them. And I don't want that.
We didn't say anything for a while. The music continued, bodies moved around us, but we stood there, two people pretending they hadn't just shattered the moment they both wanted. That night ended with dinner at some quiet little place he liked. He made me laugh again, told me stories from his younger days, stuff about sneaking out of his pack house, getting caught skinny dipping in a rival pack's lake, nearly starting a war over it.
Bet you never did dumb stuff like that.
And he grinned. I smiled. I grew up inside a fortress, remember? I didn't even sneak cookies without thinking twice.
You missed out.
He teased, raising his glass.
to sneaking cookies and slow dances that almost happen.
I clinked my glass against his. Too almost. The next few days passed quietly. Samuel had started showing signs, subtle stuff. Fingers twitching, his lips moving like he was trying to say something. Every little sign gave me hope. Julian didn't miss a single day, and neither did I. But outside that room, things weren't as peaceful. Whispers were spreading, again.
If she mates Julian, she can't be our Luna.
She'll abandon the pack. He'll take control.
She's already falling for him.
I heard it all. From the halls, in passing. Even during a conversation between Bram and Victor, I wasn't supposed to overhear.
She's compromised.
Bram hissed.
Too soft around him.
Victor, arms crossed, replied.
She better choose, him or us.
I didn't make my presence known. I just walked away. Later that evening, Steve caught me pacing the training yard. His arms were crossed, brows furrowed like he was working out some deep puzzle.
You're seeing Julian a lot lately,
he said bluntly. I shrugged. He's helping. He's claiming, Steve snapped, stepping closer.
That's what this is. He's playing the long game. He'll earn your trust, get the people behind him, and then, boom, he owns all 3 fortresses.
You're wrong.
I hope I am. I really do. But you can't let your feelings blur the lines.
I stared at him. And what about my choices, Steve? Or do those only matter when they align with yours? He hesitated.
You think I'm being selfish?
I think you're scared. And I think you still haven't forgiven me for not picking you. His jaw tightened.
This isn't about me.
But we both knew it was, at least a little. A few days later, I brought the conversation to the table, with some of the elders and senior warriors. They didn't take it well.
If you made an outsider, your bloodline becomes his,
Ram said, blunt as always. I'm not some prize to be handed off, I shot back. Victor folded his arms.
We've followed you because you stayed loyal to Adrian's legacy. If you shift loyalties now...
I haven't shifted anything, I snapped. Julian's helped us more than any of you during the hardest days. He stood beside us when we were under fire, when no one else did. And you were loyal? Really? Where were you when I needed help for Samuel's fortress? Nobody answered. Then,
he's still not one of us,
Bram muttered. And maybe that's why he sees what we can be, I fired back. They all went silent. I didn't tell them about the night in the club, or how close I was to falling completely. I didn't tell them how Julian looked at me like I was the only one in the room, or how I sometimes imagined waking up beside him, laughing, building a life where we didn't have to choose between love and loyalty. But I also didn't tell Julian that I wasn't ready to give him everything. Not yet. Not until I found the person responsible for Adrian's accident. That truth still stood between us, quiet and unmoving, a shadow that no slow dance could erase. Julian continued to do what he did best, fix things. He worked with warriors from all 3 fortresses, helped rebuild food storage, trained the young wolves, and repaired broken systems with patience and skill. He earned the respect of many, even if some still watched him with suspicion. I kept pretending we weren't falling for each other. He kept pretending that it didn't hurt when I pulled back just before saying things I wasn't ready to admit. We danced around the truth. Every day, a little closer. Every night, a little harder to ignore. And somewhere deep down, I already knew. If I didn't find Adrian's driver soon, I might lose everything, again. I didn't grow up throwing big birthday parties, small celebrations. There were balloons, few gifts stacked on a table, candles to blow out. My birthdays were good, but always fell behind expectations. Sometimes a training session if I was lucky, sometimes a council meeting if I wasn't. But this time, Julian had other plans. He found me in the East Corridor, pacing with a clipboard like a real Luna. Not because anyone told me to, just because I didn't know how to sit still anymore.
Priscilla!
Julian called, leaning against the wall like he owned the place, arms crossed, a smug grin on his lips.
How do you feel about birthdays?
I squinted at him. They happen.
That's your answer?
He walked closer, his cologne mixing with something warmer, something that felt like comfort.
Because I was planning one. For you.
I blinked. You. What?
A party. Grand one. At my fortress.
He tilted his head, watching me closely.
You deserve more than a quiet room and a paper plate.
I scoffed lightly. You sure this isn't just another excuse to feed your ego and show off your polished marble floors?
Oh, absolutely. But mostly it's to see you smile. That'd be the real win.
I rolled my eyes but felt the blush rising. Julian always had that effect on me, saying too much, doing even more, making it hard not to lean in when I should have leaned away. Later that afternoon, I told Steve about it while he was sharpening a blade in the training yard. Julian's throwing me a party, I said. Casually, like it didn't mean anything, like my voice didn't shake a little. Steve stopped mid-grind and looked up at me, squinting like he'd just caught a whiff of something sour.
At his fortress?
Yeah.
Why?
I folded my arms. Because it's my birthday? And maybe, just maybe, he's trying to build some damn trust between our packs. He stood, wiping his hands on a rag.
Or maybe he's trying to win you over, or win us all. The guy doesn't just throw parties for fun.
I tilted my head. You don't know that.
And you don't know him like you think you do.
Steve. I'm not saying don't go, he cut me off.
I'm saying, be smart, keep your eyes open, and why can't you celebrate here?
I can't say that to Julian. He will feel bad, I muttered, even though his words sat in my chest like rocks. The night before my birthday, I was in the gardens at Julian's fortress. The sky was a soft blur of stars, and the lights from the inside flickered through the glass like fireflies. He found me sitting on a stone bench, hugging my knees like a kid again.
Big day tomorrow,
Julian said, sliding next to me. I smiled. Apparently. Julian leaned forward, hands dangling between his knees.
If you choose Steve, I'll understand.
That caught me off guard. Julian?
I mean it.
He looked at me, his eyes honest, raw.
I'm not going to fight you for your heart. If it's his, I'll step back.
I breathed out through my nose, staring at the ground. I'm not choosing anyone, not until I find out the truth about Adrian. He was quiet for a beat, then said softly,
Fair.
I looked at him then, really looked. But you make it harder. That made him smile, and for a second, I let myself smile back. The next day came fast. I opened my eyes to sunlight streaming across the floor, soft and golden like it actually cared about today being different. My birthday. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up feeling numb about it. I wasn't exactly excited, but I wasn't dreading it either. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, still in my cotton sleep shirt and tangled sheets, when a knock came at the door.
Priscilla!
Ruby's voice sang through.
Wake up, birthday girl.
I dragged myself up and opened the door halfway, peeking out with messy hair and sleep still stuck to my face. Ruby hugged me with a smile, and then she wished me, then barged in like a hurricane, holding a garment bag in one hand and a wide grin on her face. What's that? I asked, yawning.
This,
she said, holding it up with dramatic flair,
is a gift from Julian.
She unzipped the bag, and I froze. The dress inside was nothing short of breathtaking. Midnight blue velvet with a slit that said elegance without screaming for attention. Tiny stones embroidered across the neckline, like stars had landed there. It shimmered subtly even in daylight. He sent this. Ruby grinned.
With a note that said, and I quote, only if she wants to wear it.
She handed it to me.
I mean, girl, look at it. It's giving queen, goddess, alpha of everyone and everything.
I ran my fingers over the fabric. It was soft and cool and heavy in a way that felt important. Tell him I'll be ready in a few. Ruby winked.
I'll let Steve know you're almost done. He's already waiting outside.
No pressure, right? I closed the door, peeled out of my pajamas, and slipped into the dress. It fit like it was made for me. I didn't know how he got my measurements so damn perfect, but I looked unreal. I pinned up part of my hair, swiped on some soft gloss, and when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I didn't flinch. I looked strong, and maybe even beautiful. The door creaked as I stepped out, smoothing the dress down my side. Steve was there in a dark jacket and a clean shirt, leaning against the hallway wall with his arms crossed, like he'd been posted there all night. He straightened as soon as he saw me. Steve hugged me not like a friend but like a couple.
Happy birthday, Priscilla,
he said, voice quiet but warm. Thanks, I smiled, brushing a loose curl behind my ear. His gaze moved over me, slow, careful, almost reverent.
You look
He cleared his throat.
too beautiful.
I tilted my head. Too beautiful. He chuckled.
You know what I mean. It's dangerous.
Then maybe you should stand closer, I said, walking past him with a teasing smile. He didn't follow right away. Then Lisa, Haneth, Luke, and a few others stepped out of their rooms and spotted me.
There she is.
Luke grinned.
Happy birthday, Luna.
Lisa whistled.
Okay, you're not just wearing that dress. You're owning it.
Haneth gave me a rare smile.
Julian's gonna fall over.
I knew already that Haneth didn't give compliment. It was a sweet taunt. Steve stared at me. We headed out together, a small pack of my people walking towards something that didn't quite feel real yet. When we arrived at Julian's fortress, the air shifted. I stopped mid-step. His fortress, if you could even still call it that, looked like something out of a royal wedding catalog. The archways were draped in soft silk banners, cream and gold. Twinkling lights hung from above like stars had been caught and tied into strings. The entire front entrance was layered in flowers, white, blush, deep crimson, cascading like a waterfall down the grand steps. Musicians played soft instrumental music that echoed through the stone courtyards. It wasn't just decorated, it was transformed. Lisa gasped.
Oh my God, is this for real?
Steve muttered beside me.
He's showing off.
I glanced at him. You think? He gave me a sideways look.
This much glitter? Yeah. He's definitely trying to make a statement.
But I didn't say anything, because if he was trying to impress me, it was working. Not because it was big or grand or expensive, but because someone had put thought into this, into me. And deep down, I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. But I was ready to walk through those gates. Then Julian walked up. Julian stood near the massive double doors of his fortress, greeting every guest like they were the most important person in the room. And I mean every single one. Smiling, shaking hands, hugging, even those who I knew couldn't stand him.
Welcome.
He said to Steve, who never liked Julian.
It means a lot that you came.
Even Steve looked stunned.
Well, I heard it was going to be grand.
He muttered, adjusting his coat.
Didn't want to miss history.
Julian just chuckled and clapped him on the shoulder.
Then let's make some.
Julian hugged me softly and then wished me. Happy birthday, Luna. I smiled. One by one, guests poured in from every corner of the region. I lost count of how many packs were represented. Everyone was dressed to impress. But even in that sea of style, Julian still stood out. Regal, but grounded. Confident, but somehow soft when he looked at me. And it wasn't just the welcome. He had set up a stage at the far end of the ballroom. Full-on velvet curtains, glittering lights, and a lineup of performers that could rival any Vegas show. A magician in a sharp crimson coat flicked a deck of cards into the air, each one exploding into butterflies before landing back in his hand. He made a rose levitate in front of a little girl, then handed it to her, still floating midair. Her gasp, pure magic on its own. The guests were hooked. Then came the dancers, 6 of them, twirling and flipping through silk ribbons, dressed in silver and gold, moving like fire and wind. The entire crowd stopped to watch, hands midair with food or drink, just staring. Speaking of food, there were hundreds of staff, not dozens, hundreds, each dressed in clean white, gliding across the floor with trays of starters I couldn't even pronounce. At least 50 different dishes were laid out across the banquet. Rows of warmers, trays, carving stations, towers of desserts, smoked venison sliders, spiced honey-glazed wings, stuffed mushrooms with gold flakes, crab cakes on tiny herb waffles, bacon-wrapped dates, charred peaches drizzled in something that smelled like a dream. I barely even lifted my hand and
Luna, Priscilla?
a staff member was already there, tray in hand.
Would you like to try this?
Before I could say yes, another stepped up.
We also have the roasted butternut squash tartlets with truffle oil, freshly prepared.
And another.
The berry-infused iced tea? It's chilled and sweetened just for you.
I blinked. How do y'all know
Julian's orders.
one of them said with a smile.
You're the guest of honor tonight.
I didn't have to ask for a single thing. Every plate, every glass was just appearing. Like I was royalty. Honestly, I'd never felt this special before. And Julian, he wasn't even pretending not to try. He was everywhere, making sure I was comfortable, checking in, slipping in little compliments with that smile of his.
You like the tartlets?
He asked, appearing at my side during the magician's final act. They're insane, I said, mouth half full. Like, unfairly good. He chuckled.
Then I'll take that as a win.
But Steve, he wasn't backing down either. He stayed close, weaving through the crowd like he owned the place, talking to guests, making them laugh, giving quick winks in my direction. He even handed me a plate once before the staff could get there, like he was that in tune with me.
Beat them to it.
He whispered, sliding a plate into my hands.
Julian's good, but I've got instincts.
Julian raised an eyebrow from across the room. The rivalry wasn't loud, but it was electric. One was trying to out-host me, the other, out-connect me. And honestly, they were both winning and losing in different ways. Still, I couldn't stop smiling. And then, lights dimmed. A spotlight lit the center of the ballroom where a grand, towering birthday cake stood. White and silver, glittering like a mountain of frosting and dreams. 5 tiers, gold detailing, sugar roses, my name etched in delicate script across the 3rd layer. Everyone gathered around, hundreds of eyes, everyone clapping. Julian stepped forward.
Ladies and gentlemen,
He said, lifting his glass.
this day is not just a celebration, it's a tribute to a woman strong enough to lead 2 packs, brave enough to stand alone when needed, and kind enough to keep her heart open through it all.
He turned toward me, lifting his glass a little higher.
To Priscilla.
Everyone raised their glasses and echoed, to Priscilla. I stepped up, smiling big, holding the knife. My heart beat a little faster. I could feel Steve behind me, Julian to the side. But I knew what this moment meant. If I handed the first piece to Julian, Steve would feel the sting. If I gave it to Steve, Julian would swallow it with pride and pain. So I turned to Lisa. She blinked.
Me?
I handed her the first slice with a smirk. Of course. Lisa took the plate, grinning, eyes glinting with understanding.
Smooth move.
Behind her, Steve and Julian both watched. They didn't say anything, but I saw the way they looked at each other, that subtle stare, both knowing they'd been played just a little. And neither liked losing, but the party went on. The air stayed alive. Julian didn't hold back. He made sure everyone had everything: comfort, entertainment, food, wine. He danced with the elders, laughed with warriors, complimented little girls on their braids, greeted enemies with the same warmth as allies. And still, in between it all, he kept checking in on me, offering me sips of wine, whispering small jokes, guiding me through crowds like I was the most valuable thing in the room. But Steve wasn't letting that crown land on Julian's head just yet. He stayed close, made me laugh louder than I expected, threw in compliments that actually made me blush.
You sure this is your birthday?
He asked at one point, leaning close.
'Cause I feel like I'm the lucky one watching you tonight.
I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't help the grin. Stop.
I'm serious. You've got every eye in this place locked on you, including mine.
And it wasn't a lie, because even though Julian was doing everything right, he had started watching me less like a hopeful man and more like a man who already knew the answer. He wasn't pushing anymore. He was bracing, like somewhere in the blur of food, music, and laughter. He had started to believe I'd already made my choice. But then, the lights changed. It spotted my place. Everyone stared at me, then. The music slowed, dipped into something classic and soft, something that could melt through tension if anyone let it. I was sipping from a glass of sparkling water, letting the buzz of the party whirl around me, when Julian appeared in front of me with that charming, confident look he always wore when he was about to ask something bold.
Dance with me?
I said, holding out his hand. His tone was light, almost casual, but the way his eyes locked on mine, it wasn't casual at all. I knew it. Julian had not accepted it yet. He will try and try. I glanced toward the floor where couples were already swaying under the golden lights. Then I looked back at him and placed my hand in his. Sure, he led me to the center, not the sides or the edges. The very heart of the dance floor, like it was meant to be ours. His hand found my waist. The other held mine, firm but gentle. We moved in slow steps, turning in rhythm to the music. He leaned in slightly, not touching cheek to cheek, but close enough for warmth to pass between us.
You look like you belong here.
He said quietly, not smiling.
Like you were made for moments like this.
I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just let the music guide us. But the moment didn't last long. From the corner of my eye, I saw Steve stepping onto the dance floor, with Hanneth, of all people. Hanneth looked like she was in on something. The moment they reached us, Hanneth gave Steve a small push toward me and, like they had planned it, Hanneth took Julian's hand instead.
Mind if we switch?
She said with a grin. Before I could blink, Steve had taken my hand, spinning me into his arms like this dance belonged to him all along. I looked at him with raised brows. Really? He smirked.
What? It's your birthday. You should dance with all your favorites.
Julian wasn't amused. I could feel his eyes on us even while dancing with Hanneth. He held her politely, but his jaw was tight, and his steps were a little sharper than before. It didn't take long. After just a few turns, Julian smoothly broke away from Hanneth and took my hand again, practically mid-step. Steve stepped back, forced to switch to Hanneth, who didn't seem the least bit surprised.
Guess I'm back,
Julian said, not breaking eye contact. This is getting a little dramatic, don't you think? I whispered, half laughing, half flustered.
Maybe, but I'm not letting him steal this dance.
Not even 10 seconds passed before Steve cut in again, taking me back with an ease that made it clear this wasn't over. And so it went. Me in the middle, Julian, then Steve, then Julian again. Then Steve, spinning, switching, trading hands like I was some kind of prize in a ballroom tug-of-war. People started to notice. Some even laughed, but I wasn't laughing. I stopped moving mid-step and dropped both their hands. Okay, I said, breath short. That's enough. I turned and walked away, straight to an empty chair near the wall. My dress rustled as I sat down, one leg crossed over the other, trying to breathe without letting my face show the storm inside. Steve didn't follow. He smoothly twirled Hanneth and picked up the rhythm like nothing had happened. Typical. Julian, on the other hand, came straight to me. He stood a few feet away at first, like he wasn't sure if I'd throw something at him. Then he stepped closer.
I'm sorry,
He said softly. I didn't look up at first. Julian, dancing with me doesn't make me choose a mate,
I know,
he said, kneeling slightly so we were at eye level.
but watching him with you, touching you, laughing with you like that, I hated it. I shouldn't have, but I did.
I looked at him now, square in the eyes. So then why did you say you'd understand if I chose Steve? You said it, clear as day. He hesitated.
Because I thought I could mean it. I thought I could be the bigger man and put your needs first. But when it's real, it's harder than I thought.
So what? I asked. You meant it when you said it, but not now,
I like you, Priscilla.
he said, voice low and sincere.
I like you more than I probably should. And tonight made that really clear. I can't pretend it doesn't bother me to see you with him.
So what now? I asked. You want me to pick just because you got jealous? He blinked.
So you are picking him?
I don't know, I said. Maybe. Julian didn't say anything. Then Steve walked over. He looked between us, clearly catching the end of something.
Priscilla,
He said with that confident, cool smile.
I've got a great gift for you.
Julian straightened, hesitating for a beat, then quietly turned and walked away. Steve held out a hand, and I followed him to a long table tucked to the side. On it was a big gift box, wrapped neatly in silver paper with a navy ribbon. This is from me, Steve said.
Took me a while to find something worthy of you.
I peeled the ribbon, lifted the lid, and looked inside. It was personal, thoughtful, something only someone who really knew me would give. I smiled, holding it close. Thank you, Steve. Really. He nodded once, eyes soft. I glanced back toward the crowd. Julian was standing near a column, half hidden, a drink in his hand. He was watching me, not staring hard, just watching. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away like he hadn't been doing it at all. The music played on. Guests kept dancing, laughing, celebrating. Steve stayed close, continuing to joke and talk with me like we were the only two in the room. But Julian, he didn't come back to impress me, not after that. He kept his distance, like he already knew what my answer might be, and maybe he was bracing for it. Later, I found Steve outside by the edge of the balcony. The wind tugged at his shirt as he leaned on the railing, looking like he didn't belong in the party at all. Hey, I said, stepping beside him. He didn't look at me.
You looked happy.
I am, kind of. He turned his head slowly.
Be careful with him, Priscilla.
I met his eyes. Why do you hate him so much?
Because he wants everything you built.
He's done nothing but help.
Because that's how it starts. He wins your trust, gets close to your people, and the next thing you know...
I'm not blind, Steve, I cut in. I know what I'm doing. He stared at me a beat longer.
I hope so.
Then I talked with Lisa, Hanneth, and Luke. They asked if Julian was serious about me, if I was serious about him. I didn't answer directly. I just said, he's different. Julian found me one last time. He handed me a small gift box.
Open it later,
He said.
when you're alone.
I nodded, and then he kissed my hand. Not my cheek, not my lips, just my hand, like he was saying more than words ever could. We had already planned to stay at Julian's fortress. People were still gossiping. I was just about to step out of the grand hall, the echoes of laughter and clinking glasses fading behind me, when Steve caught up to me. His steps hurried, his voice tense.
Priscilla, wait.
I stopped, 1 foot already over the threshold of the hallway that led to my guest room in Julian's fortress. I turned around, expecting another birthday wish, or maybe some pack business. But it wasn't that. He wasn't alone. Beside him stood an older woman, frail, worn down. Her clothes were patched together with more hope than fabric, and her hands trembled as she held them in front of her. Her eyes, they weren't just tired, they were haunted.
This is Kelly.
Steve said, glancing at me and then back at the woman like he wasn't sure how this would go.
She knows who caused Adrian's death.
My stomach dropped. What? I asked sharply, stepping closer. What are you saying, Steve? Kelly looked at me, her lips parted like she was still catching her breath from just being in the spotlight.
I saw it,
She said. Her voice rasped like she hadn't used it in years.
I was on the side of the road. I saw him.
Who? I whispered. Kelly slowly turned her head, her hand lifted, and she pointed straight at Julian. I froze. My eyes snapped to Julian, who was standing near the back of the hall, laughing lightly with a few elders. His back was turned.
Him?
Kelly whispered.
That man right there. He's the one who hit your mate's car.
No, I said immediately, shaking my head. Number, that can't be right. Julian? Kelly looked me dead in the eye.
I don't lie, Luna. I saw what I saw. That's the man.
You're sure? I asked her.
I saw the car, ma'am. I remember his face. I may be old, but my eyes don't lie. He got out of the car and stood there, looking lost.
Why didn't you come forward earlier?
I got scared,
she said.
Julian is an alpha. He is very powerful. You think anyone listens to someone like me over someone like him? But as Steve Sir is with me, I don't hesitate now.
I couldn't argue with that. I looked at Steve. Do you have any proof? Without saying a word, Steve pulled out a folded photo from inside his blazer.
This is from the accident site,
he said, handing it to me.
That's the sedan that hit Adrian. Look close. 3 scratches on the front left bumper, deep ones.
I stared at the photo, my fingers suddenly colder than they should have been. My eyes scanned the image. 3 jagged marks, like claw marks. But metal against metal, and of course Adrian in other car.
Come with me,
Dive said. I followed him through the hall, past the guests still caught up in Julian's perfect dream of a party. We moved around the fortress until we got to a sleek black car parked beside the far entrance. Julian's car. He crouched down.
Look.
And there they were, 3 deep scratches on the front left bumper. Exactly where they were in the photo. Exactly the same size. My world tilted. I stumbled back a step. He said he didn't know anything about the accident, that he was just trying to help, that he cared. Steve stepped back, arms folded across his chest.
Looks like he cared a little too late.
I turned and marched straight back into the hall. Julian, I called out, loud enough to stop the chatter. Dozens of heads turned. Julian turned around slowly, his smile slipping when he saw my face.
Priscilla?
He asked, walking toward me.
What happened?
Tell me the truth, I said, my voice sharper than steel. Were you there the day Adrian died? Julian's jaw tightened. He didn't answer right away. That silence told me more than words ever could. I stepped closer. Julian, speak. His lips parted.
I was driving my car. It was me. Yes. I did it, but...
Don't you dare say but.
It wasn't what you think,
he said, hands raised like he was trying to calm a storm.
That day, I was driving back from a meeting. There was this little girl. She ran out onto the road out of nowhere. I swerved to avoid her. I swear on everything, Priscilla. I didn't even see Adrian's car until it was too late.
I blinked. You hit him, and you didn't tell anyone?
I didn't know who it was until later,
he said, his voice breaking.
And by the time I figured it out, you were already mourning him. What was I supposed to do, Priscilla? Say I caused the death of the man you were going to marry?
You should have told me the truth, I screamed. Instead, you played savior. You came into my home. You offered help. You tried to win me over, like some white knight. But you're not. You're the storm that took him away from me. Julian looked around. Guests now gathered in a hush. Even Lisa stood frozen, her hands over her mouth.
I didn't mean for this to happen,
he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard.
I was trying to make things right.
By getting close to me, winning my trust, making me think I was safe with you? He stepped closer.
Because I fell in love with you, Priscilla, and I didn't know how else to fix what I broke.
I shook my head. You played me.
No,
he whispered.
I was trying to heal you, and maybe myself too.
You staged a love story, I said coldly, and I fell for it like a fool. He didn't say anything, just stared at the floor. My voice broke. You're not the man I thought you were.
Maybe not,
he said, eyes finally meeting mine.
But I still love you,
he said, stepping closer.
I never meant to, I swear.
Smack. My hand cracked across his cheek. You love me, I hissed. You made a whole theater show of pretending to be someone you're not. You think that wins my heart? He said nothing. I turned, looking around at the stunned crowd. Get out of my fortress, now. Julian's lips parted, like he wanted to say something else, but then he paused, realization settling in. His head dropped slightly as he whispered.
This isn't your fortress.
And I froze, because he was right. This wasn't mine, this was his. I turned to Steve, whose expression was unreadable. He looked satisfied, but not smug. He just gently wrapped an arm around my shoulder. I'm done here, I whispered. I walked out, my chin high, my heart wrecked. I didn't look back. Steve followed close, walking like he'd just claimed something he'd waited for. Julian stood in the doorway, silent, broken. Then, Julian looked at him, eyes hard, voice steady.
This may make you happy, but if you ever do anything that hurts her, you better believe I'll come for you.
Before Steve could speak, I stepped in between them. Don't you dare talk to Steve like that, I snapped. Julian looked at me one last time. There was something in his eyes I couldn't explain. Not anger, not guilt. Something else. But I didn't want to look long enough to figure it out. I turned and walked away with Steve and the others. Julian didn't follow. He walked out from the fortress, but then in the opposite direction, disappearing into the woods, away from his own fortress. Like he didn't belong there anymore. Like we were watching the fall of something that once felt like a promise. And maybe it was. Maybe he had really loved me. But tonight, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The last thing I remember, the tears in Julian's eyes, but were they true? Not at all. He was trying to play again. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at nothing. The walls around me felt too white, too silent. It had been 2 days since I asked Julian to leave. He hadn't called, hadn't texted, no word, nothing. Steve, on the other hand, had practically moved in. He'd been showing up every morning like clockwork, coffee in one hand, flowers in the other, that crooked smile on his face like he was some kind of damn savior. And I let him. I let him hold my hand. I let him take me out on walks like I was some delicate thing that needed fresh air. I let him talk about the future like it was ours. I didn't love him, but I needed someone. I was tired. Tired of falling. Tired of wondering if Julian had been lying to me this whole time. Steve wasn't complicated. He was safe, predictable. And right now, that felt like oxygen. He showed up that morning wearing a navy button-down and jeans that looked a little too perfect. Like he tried on 3 outfits before picking this one. You look nice, I said, trying to smile. He stepped inside, glanced at the vase of dying roses on my dresser, and swapped them with the fresh bouquet he brought. Tulips, yellow, cheerful.
I just wanted to see you smile today,
he said, then placed his hand on mine.
You've been carrying the world, Pris. You don't have to anymore. I can carry it with you.
That line should have made my heart race. It didn't. But it did feel like a warm blanket I didn't ask for, but didn't have the strength to push away either.
I know things have been messy lately,
he continued.
But I need to say this, and I'm not asking you for an answer right away.
I already knew what was coming. I saw it in the way his eyes softened, and how his thumb kept brushing over my knuckles.
I love you, Priscilla. I've loved you since that night at the border when you were standing under the moonlight, shouting at Bram like a queen. You don't have to love me back right now. Just let me be the man who never lets you down. Marry me.
I blinked. I didn't even feel shocked. I didn't feel anything, just tired. Okay, I said quietly, if that's what you want. His face lit up like I just handed him the whole sky. He pulled me into a hug, held me a little longer than I wanted.
I'll make you happy,
he whispered.
I promise.
By the afternoon, Steve had already called Bram, Haneth, and Victor. Announced the engagement, set the wedding date next month. But for now, the engagement party was next week. And suddenly, everyone started acting like I was royalty again. Victor brought wine. Bram offered to host the party at his estate. Haneth kept calling me, soon to be queen. They all smiled a little too much, said the right things at the right times, like they were following a script. But I wasn't stupid. They didn't care about me. Not really. They cared that I'd chosen Steve. One of them. A clean alliance. No more Julian. No more tension. I spent the rest of the day half listening to Lisa and some event planner throw color palettes at me while Steve showed off rings like a teenage girl in love with her own reflection. Evening came. I was finally alone, thank God. Then, the knock. I didn't even think twice. I opened the door, and there she was. Ruby. Messy bun, oversized coat, eyes sharp as ever. "Ruby," I whispered. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me. Her face was unreadable. I stepped forward and pulled her into a hug. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice cracking. She pulled back, arms still folded.
"Me?"
She scoffed.
"Really? Where were you, Priscilla?"
I blinked. Ruby, I'm sorry. I know I haven't looked for you. Things have been a mess."
"Oh, so I figured,"
she said, stepping into the room without asking.
"You appointed me your advisor, remember? But guess what? You never asked me for any advice the past few weeks, not a single word. You just wanted me around so you could parade me like some shiny badge, a high-profile woman in your corner, but I'm not a prop."
Her words stung. "Ruby, no, please don't say that," I whispered. "I need you." She raised a brow.
"Really? Did you miss me at the birthday party?"
I froze. "You weren't there?" I asked. She laughed, short, cold.
"You never invited me."
I felt like someone had poured cold water over my back. Before I could speak, she cut me off.
"We used to talk every day. Remember that? We used to laugh over stupid stuff, fight about politics, gossip about your suitors. Now what? You don't even check if I'm breathing."
I dropped my gaze. She was right. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I didn't mean to ignore you. I just didn't know how to face anyone. I couldn't even face myself. It wasn't on purpose. I just couldn't deal." She stared at me for a second longer, then sighed.
"I didn't come here to argue,"
she said, her voice softening just a bit.
"I came to give you one last piece of advice."
I looked up. "Please, I'll listen."
"No, you won't. But I'm gonna say it anyway."
She muttered.
"I heard about Julian, that it was his car that hit Adrian's, and I also heard you're getting engaged to Steve."
I tensed.
"Priscilla,"
she said, stepping closer.
"Why didn't you listen to Julian's side? Why are you running to Steve like he's your damn lifeboat? You don't love him, and don't even try to lie about that."
I opened my mouth, then closed it again. "I'm not running," I finally said. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep bleeding for people who won't bleed for me. I need someone who won't break me." Ruby's eyes searched mine.
"So you're picking someone just because he's safe?"
I didn't answer. She didn't press.
"I just hope you're not building a house on sand,"
she whispered.
"Because it'll all come crashing down when the tide turns."
I felt my throat tighten. My voice came out small. "I'm sorry, Ruby, for everything. You're right, I pushed you away. It wasn't fair." She walked over and pulled me into a hug. For a moment, it felt like home again. When she pulled away, she didn't say anything else, just walked to the door, opened it, and stepped out. The door clicked behind her, and I stood there, engaged to a man I didn't love, dressed in someone else's dreams, wondering what the hell I'd just done. The ring on my finger felt colder than it should have. People clapped. Steve grinned like a damn politician sealing a lifelong deal. And I smiled. Because what else could I do? He leaned in and kissed me. I kissed him back. Not because I wanted to. Not because my body craved his. But because everyone was watching, and it was expected. Inside, something tugged at me, this little pull, like a wire wound tight inside my chest that kept jerking whenever I tried to step forward. It wasn't right. This wasn't how it was supposed to feel. I should have been glowing, floating, dreaming of our future. But all I could think about was Julian. Why was my mind so obsessed with him? That evening, I sat alone in my room, took off my heels. My toes ached like hell. My dress was too tight at the ribs, and the corset strings had left marks on my skin. I was just about to unzip it when the door creaked open. Steve stepped in, still in his suit, tie a little loose, eyes glued on me like a man starved.
Hey,
He said, walking in with that slow, confident stride of his.
you look breathtaking.
I forced a small smile. Thanks. He walked over, brushing my hair back with his fingers, then leaned down and kissed me again, slow, deeper this time. His lips lingered, his hands settled on my waist. I kissed him back, but that tight wire in my chest yanked again. His fingers traced my spine, and when his hand slid down lower, I stepped back. Steve, I whispered, catching my breath. Let's wait till after the wedding, okay? He froze, blinked once, then twice.
Wait.
His voice had an edge. I tried to sound gentle. It's not about you. I'm not ready for that yet. He stared for a long second, jaw flexing. Then without another word, he stepped back, turned around, and walked out. I sat on the edge of the bed after he left, stared at the floor, and tried to find peace in the silence. But peace wasn't anywhere near me. It hadn't been for days. Even when we held meetings with the pack, Steve beside me like the proud fiancé, my mind kept drifting. I saw Julian's face when Steve spoke, heard his voice when someone mentioned his name. My chest ached with a question I didn't have the guts to answer. What if I was wrong? Steve was patient at first, always reaching for my hand, always watching me with those puppy eyes, telling me how lucky he felt. But I could see it. He was getting tired. Especially the day I slipped and said Julian's name while talking about the patrol team. Steve's whole body stiffened.
Why do you keep bringing him up?
He snapped. I blinked at him, caught off guard. I didn't mean...
You always do this, Priscilla. You say it's over, but you talk about him like he's still here, like he still owns space in your head.
I can't help it, I said, voice shaking. I spent years thinking he was...
Don't!
He cut me off, running a hand through his hair.
Don't stand there and tell me you're over him when clearly you're not.
We didn't speak for the rest of the night, and I didn't sleep. The next morning, I woke up and glanced at my phone. Missed calls, 3 of them from Julian. I tossed the phone aside and pressed my hands over my face. He kept calling for the whole day. I never answered. I never called back. Until the next night, I was curled up on the bed, lights off, just the faint glow of the moon casting shadows across the floor when my phone buzzed again. His name flashed across the screen. Julian? Something inside me cracked. I picked up. I don't want to talk, I said immediately, voice low.
Then just listen.
Julian slurred. He sounded drunk, his words slow, dragging.
I messed up, Priscilla. I messed up so bad. But I love you. You hear me? I love you. And I can't do this without you.
Julian, please don't.
I can't sleep. I can't breathe without thinking about you. I don't care what you heard. Just look me in the eyes once. That's all I ask.
My eyes welled up. My chest was so tight it felt like I was suffocating. You don't get to say that now, I whispered. You should have said it before. Well, that might also wouldn't have worked. And I hung up. I didn't even hear the door open.
What the hell was that?
Steve's voice exploded behind me. I turned around, eyes wide. Steve? His face was a storm, eyes wild, mouth tight.
You're talking to him? Behind my back?
Not at all, I stood up. Yes, I picked up, but only to tell him to stop calling me.
You're lying?
He barked.
You've been thinking about him every damn day, haven't you?
Steve, I swear.
You think I'm a fool?
He threw his hands up.
I see the way you space out, the way you flinch when I touch you. You're still in love with him.
I'm trying, I cried out. I'm trying to move on, to give you a chance. He laughed, cold, sharp.
A chance? You think I want to be some second-place prize?
No, I yelled back. But I don't know how to stop feeling what I feel. Steve pointed at me, jaw clenched.
You talk to him again, even once. This engagement is over. Done.
I stood frozen, staring at him.
You hear me?
He said again, louder this time.
You talk to Julian again, even one damn time, I'm walking away. And good luck finding anyone else in this fortress who'll stand by you after that.
He stormed out, and I just stood there, my whole body still. Tears slipped down my face, silent and bitter. What the hell had I become? I used to be the Luna that people feared, respected. I used to have a voice that shook rooms. And now I was standing in the shadows of two men, apologizing for how I felt. Walking on eggshells just to hold on to a little piece of stability. I collapsed onto the bed, curling into myself. Maybe I had made the wrong choice, or maybe I had no choice at all. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the kind of love I had dreamed about. This wasn't peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know who I was anymore. I wanted to see my father. Maybe his face could make me relax. I didn't even knock on the door this time. My hand was trembling a little as I pushed it open. The room smelled the same, faintly of medicine and old blankets. My dad was lying in the bed, eyes closed, his face looking thinner than the last time I'd really looked at him. He hadn't spoken for months after Adrian's death, just stared at the ceiling or dozed off mid-thought. I missed his voice. I missed his advice. I missed having someone in my corner who didn't expect anything from me but honesty. I stepped closer, unsure of how to even start. I was just about to speak when I heard something that nearly stopped me in my tracks.
Julian?
He asked, his voice scratchy but clear.
Where is he? Why didn't he come today to see me? I'm angry with him. Why didn't he come?
My breath caught. I blinked at him, wondering if I was hallucinating. Dad, you can talk? Oh my God, you're talking. He gave me a tired smile, one corner of his mouth twitching up like it took effort.
Don't sound so surprised. It's not magic. It's Julian's efforts. And yours too. I was healing slowly, but then you stopped coming here.
I sat on the edge of the bed, brushing my hair behind my ears, trying to process what I'd just heard. I am so sorry, Dad. I really never meant it like that. I should have come, but everything messed up. Dad, I forgot to tell you. But wait, did nobody tell you anything?
About what?
He asked, blinking slowly like he was trying to stay focused. I took a deep breath. About what happened on my birthday party. About Julian and Steve and everything.
I haven't been out in weeks, Priscilla. It's not anyone's fault, but yes, I expected you to visit, and Julian too.
I looked down, guilt swallowing me whole. I'm sorry, Dad. I've been not with you last few days. Everything's been a wreck. I should have come to you. I should have told you everything, but I didn't even know where to start. He gently patted my hand.
Well, you're here now, so start.
And I did. I told him everything. From the moment Kelly showed up with that damn photograph, to the confrontation with Julian, the slap, the heartbreak, Steve's proposal, the engagement, and even that night, when Julian called and Steve caught me on the phone. I left nothing out. My words poured out like water breaking through a dam, messy and raw and desperate. When I finished, I couldn't even look at him. I stared at the folds of his blanket, waiting for him to say something, anything. He took a deep breath and said,
Julian told me the truth.
I looked up at him so fast it made my head spin. What?
He came to see me like he always did. Right after the incident, he told me everything.
Dad said, his eyes gentle now, not sharp with judgment like I expected.
He told me he hit Adrian's car. He explained it all. That he swerved to avoid a child. That he never meant for any of it to happen.
I blinked back tears. And you believed him?
I did,
he said without hesitation.
Because I saw it in his eyes. Regret. Pain. Not for himself, but for you, for Adrian, even for me. He didn't try to run away from it. He came clean. That takes guts.
I sat frozen, no words, just silence growing louder around me.
You think you know pain, Priscilla, but that boy's been carrying it on his back every day since. He's done everything he could to atone, not just for Adrian, but for you. He stayed by my side when you were too broken to visit. He took care of me like a son would. And not once did he complain.
Dad said. A single tear slid down my cheek. I didn't even wipe it away.
He's not a bad man,
Dad added.
Far from it. He's made mistakes, big ones. But so have we all. What matters is what you do after.
I leaned forward, burying my face in my hands. Dad, I didn't know who to believe. I was so angry. I didn't want to feel anything for him. But I did. I still do. And that scares me. His hand pressed lightly over mine.
You don't have to figure it all out today, but you do have to stop lying to yourself.
I looked up at him, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm engaged to Steve.
And do you love him?
He asked simply. I didn't answer.
That's what I thought,
he said.
Listen, baby girl, you can lie to everyone else, but don't lie to me, and don't lie to yourself. You've always had a fire inside you. Don't let anyone, any man, any past, put that out.
My throat felt tight. My chest ached, not from heartbreak this time, but from truth. A truth I'd buried so deep under pride, fear, and the pressure to survive.
Julian messed up,
Dad continued.
But you gave up on him without hearing him out. You gave him no shot to explain. And now you're here, crying over a man who never stopped loving you while being with a man you don't even really want.
His words hit me harder than anything Steve ever yelled. I don't even know what to do anymore, I whispered.
You do,
he said.
You've just been too scared to do it.
I sat there with him for a while, no more words exchanged. Just silence and the kind of peace that only comes from sitting with someone who knows your soul better than you do. When I finally got up to leave, he squeezed my hand.
You still got time. Don't waste it pretending.
I didn't promise anything. I couldn't. But as I walked out of the room, I knew something had shifted. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running from the truth and start facing it, one broken piece at a time. I was barely halfway down the hall to my room when one of the guards came rushing toward me, his boots echoing off the stone floor like something was off.
Luna,
he said, a little out of breath.
There's someone looking for you. She says it's urgent.
My brow shot up. Who? He shook his head.
Didn't say, but she sent a guy to fetch you. He's waiting by the gate.
Something about his tone pulled me straight. I adjusted the wrap around my waist and followed him without asking another question. As we made it outside, a man stood near the entrance, hands clasped, eyes low like he was trying not to cause a stir. You're the one looking for me, I asked, voice firm.
Yes, Luna.
He said quickly.
Please, come with me. She's waiting.
I didn't ask who. My gut was already screaming. I followed him quietly, boots crunching across the gravel road, past the front gates, and down toward the edge of the woods. It was dusk, sky a deep orange, birds settling, air brushing cool against my skin. And then I saw her. Kelly, I blinked, stunned. What the hell are you doing out here? She stepped out from the tree line, her face half hidden beneath a scarf, eyes filled with worry.
I'm sorry, Luna. I couldn't come into the fortress, not after what happened.
Why not? I snapped. And what do you mean urgent? You dragged me all the way out here. Speak. She glanced around like we were being watched, then looked me straight in the eye.
Because I didn't tell you everything.
My stomach didn't twist, but everything in me tensed. What are you talking about? I asked, crossing my arms. Kelly took a breath so long I thought she might change her mind, but then she said it.
Yes, Alpha Julian hit Adrian's car. That part's true, but it wasn't his fault, not even close. Adrian was speeding, way too fast. He came flying around a bend without warning, and Julian was already distracted, trying to keep a little girl from running into the road. He slammed the brakes. Adrian couldn't.
I stared at her like the ground had shifted under me. Why not?
Because,
Kelly whispered, eyes burning.
Steve had pulled the damn brakes off Adrian's car. On purpose.
My breath left my lungs. What?
He did it,
She said shakily.
He wanted Adrian gone. He wanted to be alpha. He tampered with the brakes, and he was counting on something happening.
You're telling me Steve set this up? My voice cracked as the words came out. He used Julian as a scapegoat?
Julian didn't even see Adrian coming. He braked. He tried. But Adrian, he never had a chance.
I stepped back. Everything inside me started spinning. Why didn't you say anything before? She looked down.
Because Steve threatened me. Said if I ever opened my mouth, he'd make me disappear. I was scared, Luna, but I couldn't keep it in any longer. You deserve to know.
My eyes stung. You came here. Just to tell me that? She gave me a tiny nod.
You deserve the truth.
I turned on my heel and stormed toward the fortress. My brain was a wildfire of fury and heartbreak and confusion. But just as I reached the outer gate, another guard came sprinting toward me.
Luna!
He shouted. What now? I snapped.
It's Alpha Julian. There's been an accident.
My blood ran cold. What? I breathed. Where?
Same spot.
He said.
Same road where Adrian crashed.
I stopped breathing. Where is he now?
Still there. We tried calling an ambulance, but...
He hesitated, voice low.
Luna, I don't think it was an accident. Not this time.
My hands curled into fists. Number. No, he wouldn't. Without another word, I ran. I ran like I'd never run before. I don't even remember the ride. Just the flashing trees. The wind screaming in my ears. The way my heart dropped when I saw him. Julian, he was lying on the ground, blood on his shirt, his hand curled near the ditch like he didn't even try to break the fall. I fell beside him, my voice cracking. Julian, look at me. Stay awake. His eyelids fluttered, just barely. We got him to the hospital fast. I stayed in the hallway pacing like I was losing my mind. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every second felt like an eternity. When the doctor came out and said,
He's stable. A few more minutes, and it would have been too late.
I didn't wait for another word. I pushed through the doors. The room smelled like antiseptic. The monitors beeped steadily. He looked pale, bruised, bandaged, but breathing. I sat beside him, took his hand in both of mine, and waited. When his eyes finally opened, they landed right on me, confused, broken, guilty.
Priscilla,
He whispered. I didn't let him say another word. I leaned in and kissed him. Hard, deep, like all my grief and anger and love had exploded inside me. I kissed him like it was the only thing keeping me alive. And when he kissed me back, everything that was broken between us didn't feel so broken anymore. When I finally pulled back, he stared at me like he wasn't sure if this was real. Don't talk, I said. Not yet. He smiled weakly.
Did you marry Steve?
I rolled my eyes. Julian, I just kissed you like my life depended on it. His lips twitched.
So, that's a no?
I smirked. That's a hell no. Then my expression dropped. I need to tell you something.
What now?
He asked, still groggy. Steve. He was the one who pulled Adrian's brakes. Kelly told me everything. Julian, you weren't at fault. You tried to save him. You tried. His whole face changed. Eyes widened, jaw clenched.
You're serious?
Dead serious. He turned away for a second, blinking hard.
I thought I'd never get to explain. I thought you'd never believe me.
I almost didn't, I whispered. But my dad believed in you. And now I do too. We sat there in silence for a moment. Just breathing. Just being. Then we returned together. Julian at my side, bandages and all. And when we walked through the gates of Adrian's fortress, the looks on everyone's faces, shock, confusion, curiosity, was something I'll never forget. Julian and I, side by side again. And the truth? The truth had finally started crawling out from the shadows. The fortress courtyard was buzzing like a stirred-up hive when we stepped into the hall. Everyone was there: Luke, Lisa, Hanneth, the elders, the warriors, the council, and Steve, standing smack in the middle like he owned the damn place. I barely had time to process everything when Lisa stormed toward me.
You seriously brought Julian back here? After everything?
She snapped, hands flying like she was about to tear her hair out. Luke jumped in.
What the hell's wrong with you, Priscilla? We trusted you. You vanished, and now you're parading around with him like nothing happened.
I didn't flinch. I looked both of them dead in the eye. You done yelling? I asked, calm as ever. Good. Then sit tight and listen. They fell silent, but barely. I took a step forward and raised my voice. Everyone, listen up. I've got something y'all need to hear, and you better hear it before you jump to conclusions. All eyes turned toward me. Julian stayed close, not saying a word, just letting me lead. Steve didn't just lie to me. He didn't just try to tear me away from Julian. He played all of us. He staged everything. Adrian's accident? That wasn't Julian's fault. It was Steve. He tampered with Adrian's brakes. Kelly saw everything, and when she tried to speak up, Steve threatened her. A few gasps broke out. Some folks turned and looked at Steve like they just realized the devil had been walking among us this whole time. Steve didn't flinch. He stepped up like a smug piece of work and raised his voice.
All right.
He said, raising both hands.
Everybody just calm the hell down.
Then he turned toward me with that fake, crooked smile.
Let's not forget one thing here. I'm still the strongest wolf in this damn place. So what if Priscilla's picking Julian now? Guess what? Doesn't matter. I'm taking this fortress. I will lead it. That clear?
Some folks actually agreed, nodded at him, whispered, looked at each other like maybe he was right. I squared my shoulders. I'm still the Luna. Steve's eyes flashed.
Not at all, darling.
He spat.
You're nothing. Just get out of here with that shameful little smile of yours.
I clenched my fists. My voice cut sharp and strong. Friends, pack, listen to me. Steve is our enemy. If we don't stop him now, he'll tear through everyone who stands in his way. This isn't just about who leads. This is about who protects. Luke took a slow step toward me, then Lisa, then Hanneth, then a few others, some warriors, some elders, moved behind me. We didn't have numbers on our side, but we had heart, loyalty. Steve gave a dry laugh.
I see some fools standing behind her,
he said. Then he dropped his jacket to the ground and muttered,
Let's make this real.
He shifted. Bones cracked, muscles bulged, fur ripped out. And within seconds, there he was, his wolf form, massive, towering, more beast than wolf. He growled low and deep, a sound that vibrated the stone beneath our feet. And then, one by one, more wolves on his side started shifting. Fur, claws, teeth. They surrounded us like a tidal wave of power and betrayal. I didn't wait. I shifted too. The moment my paws hit the ground, I bolted forward, not out of fear, but strategy. He was stronger, sure, but I was faster, smarter. Steve lunged at me, jaws wide, but I veered just in time and slid past him, teeth scraping his flank. I heard bones snapping behind me as my pack shifted. The courtyard turned into chaos, growls, yelps, dust flying. It was war. Steve wasn't holding back. He slammed into me from the side, throwing me into the wall. Pain shot through my ribs, but I bounced back, landed on all fours, and snapped at him, biting deep into his shoulder. He roared, slashing at me with his claws. I dodged, barely, but one swipe caught my side. I stumbled. Blood hit the stone. My legs buckled. Julian howled. He tore through Steve's pack, fighting like a damn hurricane. He was on fire, throwing wolves off with sheer force, protecting everyone he could. But when he saw me fall, he tried to get to me. He couldn't. Steve's wolves closed in on him, snarling, biting, locking him down. I was struggling to stand. Steve was above me again, massive, eyes wild. Ready to end this, I forced myself up, but my legs weren't cooperating. I tried to snap at him, to dodge, to claw, but he knocked me down again, harder this time. Everything blurred for a second. I heard Julian's voice in my head. "Get up, baby, please." Then I tried, but again I failed. And then, a new sound, a thunder of paws. It wasn't more of Steve's wolves. It was Adrian's soldiers. They poured in like a damn army, charging past the gate, leaping over the walls, howling as they ran. At first I panicked, thought they'd side with Steve, but then they slammed into Steve's wolves. They weren't here for Steve. They were here for me. And they were obviously hundreds. Hope lit like a fire in my gut. I pushed myself up, pain be damned. I growled low and fierce. Then I ran, straight at Steve. He didn't expect it. I slammed into him with everything I had, biting down on his shoulder, ripping, clawing, spinning underneath him to strike again. Julian broke free and joined in, crashing into Steve's side like a freight train. The three of us tangled in a blur of teeth and fur and fury. And then Lisa also joined us, and then Luke too. I caught Steve by the neck, Julian pinned his back, and together we ended it. The rest of Steve's pack scattered. Those who didn't were already taken down by Adrian's soldiers. It was over. I shifted back into human form, blood staining my dress, my legs weak, breath heavy. Julian stood beside me, covered in dirt and bruises, but whole. The courtyard was silent now. Wolves standing, watching. No one dared challenge us, because they didn't wanted to. Then my father, Samuel, stepped out from the crowd. He walked literally. I was so surprised to see him. He raised his voice loud and proud.
"Let it be known,"
he said,
"that Priscilla, daughter of the bloodline, rightful Luna, shall now unite this fortress with her chosen mate."
He turned to me.
"Julian, come stand by your Luna."
Julian walked up, his eyes locked on mine, lips pulled into a crooked, tired smile.
"I never thought I'd get to do this,"
he said, brushing a strand of hair off my face. "You waited long enough," I whispered. We stood in the middle of that broken courtyard, ashes, blood, and all, and we got married right then and there. People clapped, cheered, wolves howled. I kissed him with everything I had in me. All the hurt, the anger, the grief, the love. It was raw. It was messy. And it was perfect. Julian, my mate, was now alpha of 3 packs. And me? I was Luna of them all. The war was over, but our story, it had only just begun.